Chapter 874. Gong Coco was baffled and didn't say a word. Then, she saw the fat man leave with a bunch of people. Gong Coco finally had a chance to figure out what had happened. If she guessed correctly, this was what her mother had secretly told her when she was young: time travel. The difference was that her mother had traveled from modern times to ancient times, while she had traveled from ancient times to modern times. Had she traveled to the era her mother lived in? Feeling her inner strength, Gong Coco confirmed that she was in her own body. From what they had said, there was another person named Gong Coco here. When she was in the water, she vaguely saw a sinking figure. Could that be the Gong Coco of this world? Was she dead? And she looked exactly like the Gong Coco of this world. Was that why they had mistaken her for the Gong Coco of this world? Kiki, are you okay? The short-haired assistant took a while to compose herself. I told you not to drink the food Lulan gave you. She might have drugged you. Why did you stay in the water for so long? Are you feeling unwell? Gong Coco caught some important information and couldn't help but ask, why would Lulan want to harm me? The assistant glanced at her. Kiki, how could you forget? Back then, she auditioned for the role of the second female lead. Also, she has liked President Jiang for a long time. You are President Jiang's wife. How could she not be jealous of you? Me? Gong Coco couldn't stay calm. I'm married. God knew that she was already the mistress of her husband in Dayu State. Everyone said that her brother would take care of her for the rest of her life. How could she be married here? The assistant looked at her strangely. Did something happen to you? Although your marriage is a secret and not many people know about it, and President Jiang doesn't like you very much, you can't have forgotten that you're married, right? Then, ignoring Gong Coco's confused expression, she continued, hurry. Go change your clothes first. Don't catch a cold. You still have to film in the afternoon. If you don't shoot today and delay the progress, the director will be angry again. As he spoke, he hurriedly pushed Gong Coco to the nanny van. Gong Coco tried her best to take in everything around her. Then, she subconsciously sorted out her priorities. Her situation was a little complicated. Before she figured out what to do, she had to do what she had to do. The most important thing right now was to act. Luckily, she was playing the role of a princess who lived in troubled times and was not inferior to men. This is an ancient romance drama. For the sake of true love, the female and the male are together regardless of their country's enmity. She, on the other hand, was a female supporting character who deeply loved the male lead but couldn't obtain him. In the end, she died for the male lead. If she acted well, she would attract a lot of fans. Of course, she didn't know about this, but her little assistant, Yu Tian, told her. The scene in the afternoon happened to be the scene where the second female lead and the male lead met for the first time. The male lead saw injustice on the road and pulled out a knife to help. However, at this time, he had just come down the mountain and his martial arts were very bad. He failed to pull out the knife and was suppressed by the other party. Then, she appeared, took care of the mountain bandits in a few moves, and saved the male lead. It was very simple. Gong Coco felt that she was completely capable of doing the job. It would be best if she could quickly finish this scene and go back. She wanted to find a place to think about this important matter in her life. When the director heard that she was fine, he frowned and walked over to her. He said unhappily, "This afternoon scene is very important to you. You're playing the role of a princess. You must have a bearing. Although you know martial arts, you must be elegant. You can't give people the impression that you're a woman of the martial arts world. Moreover, your personality should be lively. This is the first time you've left the palace, and you're inexperienced in the world. You must act out that pure, lively, and noble feeling. Understand? Gong Coco nodded casually. After changing her clothes, she frowned in discomfort. The material was too poor. Even the servants in her princess residence wore better clothes than this. The director saw that she didn't seem to be listening and couldn't help but shake his head. He had put in a lot of effort into this drama, and he wasn't careless with the casting. However, who asked this Madame Jiang to have such a powerful background? Since the great CEO Jiang had personally asked, how could he not give her a role? It was really a pity that he had to give up this second female lead role. It was originally a very good role. After Gong Coco came, she kept getting into trouble and often slowed down the progress. This made everyone very dissatisfied with her. The director couldn't help but think that if she got into trouble again, he would just directly delete her scenes. Thus, he said perfunctorily, if there's anything you don't understand, go and look for Xiaoqing. After all, it's your scene together. He pointed at the male lead in this drama, Meng Xiaoqing, and then immediately went to set up the set. Gong Coco turned her head and saw Meng Xiaoqing talking to a cold-looking beauty. That girl should be the female lead, Xue Wen. Although Gong Coco didn't want to disturb them, there were indeed many things she didn't understand. Thus, she still humbly asked for advice. Mother had said before that she should not be ashamed to ask for advice. Otherwise, it would be too late to complain when she made a mistake. Thus, she took the script and walked towards the two of them. She had already flipped through the script. Fortunately, she could understand the words of this era and had a photographic memory. No matter what, she could be calm and collected at any time. This allowed her to quickly get into character and shouldn't trouble others too much. Who knew that the moment she approached, Meng Xiaoqing would frown? Do you need something? Gong Coco blinked. Why did she feel that he seemed to have a lot of opinions about her? She said softly, I'm here to ask some questions, I'm not free. Meng Xiaoqing stepped forward and blocked Xue Wen, as if she was some kind of scourge. Go find someone else. Gong Coco was furious. When had she ever been treated like this? However, she didn't show it on her face and smiled even more sweetly. All right, then I won't disturb you. With that, she turned and left. Xue Wen frowned. She seems to have not given up on you. Meng Xiaoqing frowned when he heard that. I'm not interested in her. As he said that, he gave Xue Wen his signature smile that could electrocute people to death. Don't you know who I like? Gong Coco didn't bother with them anymore. Instead, she found someone else to ask. She mainly asked about some very basic things, such as positioning, hanging wires, and so on. Although that person looked puzzled, she still seriously told Gong Coco. Gong Coco smiled sweetly at her. Older sister you're really a good person. Yu Qi smiled. All right, go quickly. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. Gong Coco nodded. Suddenly, her ears twitched. People who practiced martial arts were observant and alert. Although she was asking questions, her attention was always on the scene. As long as she paid attention, she could hear what was being said. At this moment, she heard someone mention her name. Moreover, it wasn't anything good. Chapter 875. Remember, don't make a mistake. Give the first wire to Gong Coco. If there's a mistake, it'll be a big deal. The person said and gave another person a card. After this is done, I'll give you the other half. Got it. The person who took the card nodded. Tell Sister Lu not to worry. Leave this to me. The person nodded and thought to himself, Gong Coco, since you can't drown to death, then you'll just have to fall and disfigure yourself. Let's see how you can continue acting. Gong Coco tilted her head when she heard this. It seemed like someone wanted to harm her. Interesting. So the drowning of the girl was also caused by someone else. That girl's body would probably be found very soon. Then, before that, she would help that girl vent her anger. She smiled very cutely, but those who knew her well knew that someone was going to be in big trouble. Soon, the scene of the male lead going down the mountain and seeing injustice on the road was over. It was her turn to appear. The director walked over to talk to the male lead. On the other side, someone ran over to put the wire on Gong Coco. Gong Coco looked at the ordinary-looking man who had his head lowered. When he turned around, she took out a stone that she had secretly prepared and threw it at his kneecap. That person screamed and knelt on the ground. Gong Coco took advantage of the fact that many people were surrounding them to secretly switch the wire. I'm fine. That person was afraid that the director would be unhappy, so he quickly got up. Enduring the pain, he continued to fasten Gong Coco's seatbelt. Gong Coco smiled and said, "Are you okay?" That person looked at Gong Coco's flower-like smile and subconsciously lowered his head. He missed the meaningful look in Gong Coco's eyes. She had hit him hard just now. For the next few days, this person could only walk with a limp. Soon, the director finished negotiating and the staff put the wire on Meng Xiaoqing again. The director looked at Gong Coco worriedly. In the end, he didn't say anything and shouted loudly. First encounter, round 1, time 1, action. Meng Xiaoqing quickly got into character. Dressed in white, he really had the temperament of a young chivalrous swordsman. It was just that he was now being forced into a fluster by the bandits and seemed to be in a difficult situation. At this moment, someone nudged Gong Coco. Gong Coco knew that it was time for her to appear. Her expression changed. She, who originally had a sweet appearance and a weak aura, seemed to have changed into another person in an instant. The ancient-style long dress was indescribably fitting on her. The way she held the sword, the aura around her, and every move she made was as smooth as flowing water. Not only was she powerful, but she also faintly exuded an air of nobility. No one would mistake her for a chivalrous woman of the Jianghu, but rather a noble child who had been taught by a martial arts master. Her stunning entrance quickly shocked everyone. Temperament was a difficult thing to describe, but at this moment, Gong Coco's temperament was that of an ancient nobleman. Meng Xiaoqing was originally supposed to reveal a surprised and stunned expression, but this time, he completely revealed his true feelings. After a fight scene, although they only exchanged a few words, his evaluation of Gong Coco's acting kept rising. This woman was not simple. When he acted with her, he actually felt like he was being suppressed. The director could not believe his eyes. He knew that the person recommended by President Jiang would not be a common person. So it turned out that Gong Coco had not shown her true abilities a few days ago. He did not expect her ability to be so stunning. Not only did she perfectly perform all the moves that were taught to her, but her movements when hanging from the wire were also so beautiful. It was really rare. After recording a long scene, the director did not have any intention of shouting, "Cut," so the two of them could only continue acting according to the script. But at this moment, a situation suddenly occurred. Meng Xiaoqing, who was supposed to stab down from above and give the bandit leader a fatal blow, suddenly had his safety rope snapped. His entire body fell from midair. Everyone present let out a cry of surprise. Meng Xiaoqing was currently a popular young hunk. If he fell and was disfigured, how could they continue acting? Even Meng Xiaoqing's expression changed drastically. He subconsciously covered his face, but at such a high distance, he felt a chill in his heart and was prepared to be seriously injured. All of this happened in a split second. At this moment, Gong Coco suddenly swooped down. She stepped on a big tree and used the recoil to jump more than 2 meters high, pouncing towards Meng Xiaoqing. Not only did she catch him, but she also landed very steadily on her knees. The entire scene was like an exquisitely designed action blockbuster. Everyone held their breaths and then burst into a burst of exclamations. Meng Xiaoqing found himself in a warm embrace and was still in disbelief. The next second, he opened his eyes and found himself in a princess hug by Gong Coco. Most importantly, Gong Coco gave him a sweet smile. For a moment, her eyes seemed to be filled with countless little stars. "Are you okay?" As she said that, she tilted her head. It was simply too sweet. Tilted head kill. Meng Xiaoqing suddenly felt his heart beating extremely fast. This was the first time in his 20 years of life that he had lost control of his heart. Moreover, it was towards a woman he didn't like. Meng Xiaoqing's assistant hurried over and asked him about the situation. When he was put down, he was still a little dizzy. He didn't understand how he had been caught by Gong Coco and how he had escaped a calamity. The director looked as if he had survived a calamity. When he ran over to Gong Coco, his attitude towards her had taken a 180-degree turn. "Coco. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I really don't know what would have happened." As he said that, he said to Meng Xiaoqing, "Xiaoqing, go and rest. I will definitely give you an explanation for what happened today." Only then did Meng Xiaoqing nod. He could clearly feel that someone had tampered with the suppressive force earlier. How dare they touch him? Those people must have a death wish. Gong Coco calmly accepted everyone's praise. Yu Tian looked even more confused as she said, "Coco, when did you become so amazing? Could it be that when you meet someone you like, your potential really explodes?" Before she could finish her sentence, she covered her mouth with a horrified expression. Gong Coco saw that the others had already surrounded Meng Xiaoqing and then glanced at her. "When you follow me, there are some things you can say and some things you can't. If you say something wrong, there's no room for regret." Although she said it with a smile, Yu Tian felt a chill all over her body. She nodded and didn't dare to speak carelessly anymore. The scene had been shot very well, but Meng Xiaoqing had been frightened. The rest could only be res hot next time. Gong Coco heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like she could finally leave. It seemed like nothing had gone wrong today. She was indeed Dai Yute State's smartest. No, the second smartest princess. The first was her mother. This was absolutely indisputable. On the way back, Gong Coco had been resting with her eyes closed. She was a little tired and couldn't think about the problem. Just then, Yu Tian spoke. "Coco, we've arrived at the Jiang residence. I won't be going in. I'll come and pick you up tomorrow." Gong Coco nodded and then got out of the car in confusion. Although it was the first time she had seen the large residence in front of her, it suited her taste very well. As soon as she walked in, a servant ran over and whispered to her. "Madam, young master is back." Chapter 876. Gong Coco raised her eyebrows. She just wanted to have a place to rest and think about the future. She didn't have any thoughts about her strange husband. The reason she came here was not only to stay overnight, but also to tell the victim's husband that the girl had been killed. She didn't say it on the set just now because the people there were complicated. If she said that the girl was dead on the spot, the person behind the scenes would know that he had succeeded. He would definitely destroy the evidence quickly and get rid of himself. But once she appeared, the person behind the scenes would think that the girl was not dead. He would definitely panic and be angry. Then she would tell the person close to her to go after the murderer. Those bad guys would definitely be caught off guard. Unfortunately, she spent a long time in the car to understand the mobile phone, but she couldn't find anyone close to her in her contact list. She didn't know that there was such a thing as 110 in this world, so she had to come here. No matter what, the girl's husband wouldn't just sit by and do nothing, right? When Jiang Shanke arrived at the dining room, he saw a sweet and lovely little girl eating. Her movements were very elegant and noble. Obviously, she had a good education. But because she was too hungry, she ate quickly. After all the dishes were served and all the servants left, she simply let go of her reserve and ate in big mouthfuls. Her cheeks were stuffed, and the feeling of fullness made her squint her eyes in satisfaction. She was like a cat with a noble pedigree, which made people want to trample on her. At that moment, Jiang Shanke, who was standing in the dark, smiled slightly. It was very interesting. He hadn't seen his little wife for a day, and she had changed into a different person. At first glance, they looked very similar, but in the end, they were still different. For example, the girl in front of him had skin as white as snow, which was not the effect of makeup. His previous wife's skin was not so white and delicate. As if she felt that someone was looking at her, Gong Coco's little ears moved slightly, and her big eyes looked over. At that moment, Jiang Shanke saw a flash of surprise, and annoyance in her big bright eyes. Finally, she pretended to be calm and put down her chopsticks, then elegantly wiped her mouth. "You are President Jiang." She guessed that this person was the girl's husband. According to Yu Tian, they had a secret marriage, which meant that no one knew that they were married. And the girl's husband didn't seem to like her, but he couldn't ignore the hatred of killing his wife, right? President Jiang. What kind of a dress was that? Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows playfully and sat opposite her. What do you want to say? Gong Coco was a little nervous. She didn't expect that there would be someone with such a strong aura in this world. It was just like when her brother was angry. However, she was the princess of Dai Yu State. She would not embarrass herself. Therefore, she raised her chin and said arrogantly. As you can see, although this miss looks very similar to your wife, I'm not her. Today on set, she was poisoned and sunk into the water. I don't know how your world deals with this kind of thing, so I decided to keep it a secret and only told you. If I did anything wrong, I apologize to you. I hope that as her husband, you can find the culprit as soon as possible and give her justice. After she finished speaking, she thought about it for a while and felt that there was nothing wrong with it. However, the other party didn't say anything for a long time, which made her a little scared. Could it be that she was wrong? That girl's husband isn't reliable either. Unfortunately, she was an outsider and didn't know the rules of this world. If only she had found the bailiff from the beginning. She didn't trust anyone on set. Jiang Shanke's handsome face didn't change at all. It was as if her words were just a daily greeting. Only his fair and slender fingers tapped on the table. This was his habit when he was thinking. Gong Coco waited for a long time but didn't hear his reply. She couldn't help but say unhappily. Did this miss not express myself clearly enough? She didn't know why, but in front of this man, she couldn't help but become domineering. She even wanted to use her status to suppress his aura. There were a few times when she almost said the word "this miss." Jiang Shanke's deep black eyes flashed with a trace of a smile. Even though the girl in front of him was domineering, there was an indescribable cuteness. It made people want to hold her in their arms and give her everything she wanted. How could he let such a cute little thing go? Kiki, I don't understand what you mean. When he smiled, the coldness and alienation faded away. His handsome face was even more stunning. He blinked and said slowly, "You want to play the amnesia game?" "Sure, we have such a good relationship. I can cooperate with you." Gong Coco was stunned. "You..." "I'm telling the truth. You'll understand when you find her corpse." Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows slightly and said in a very doting manner. Okay, as you wish. He then pressed the call bell on the table and someone came in. Jiang Shanke whispered a few words in his ear, then looked helplessly at Gong Coco. Is it okay now? I've sent someone to find the corpse. What else do you want to say? Gong Coco frowned and looked at him awkwardly. Why did she feel that this man didn't believe her at all? Forget it. It was already dark and she didn't have a place to stay. That. I'm not asking for anything in return. It's just that. I have nowhere to go now. Do you want to take me in for a few days? Jiang Shanke saw her expression that said, It's your honor to take me in, and the smile on his face deepened. He realized that this little fellow was really cute. There were very few people who dared to speak to him in such a disrespectful manner. It made him want to tease her. Kiki, you and I are husband and wife. We should be living together. I already said that we're not husband and wife. Gong Coco was so angry that she put her hands on her hips. You're obviously lying. If you have a good relationship with her, how can you not tell who your wife is? Jiang Shanke said in a low voice, Are you blaming me for being too busy? His beautiful voice that was like a cello implied infinite tolerance. How about this, I'll come home more often in the future and get to know you better. You. Gong Coco's face was red with anger. She pointed her pale finger at him, but she didn't know what to say. You lecher, I'm not going to play with you anymore. With that said, she turned her head and got up to leave. She didn't want to stay here anymore, okay? Wait. Although he didn't want to stop, his voice seemed to have a magical power that made Gong Coco listen to him. Kiki, have you forgotten why you married me? Gong Coco turned around like an angry kitten. Just as she was about to say, I didn't marry you, Jiang Shanke spoke first. You married me because you have a lot of enemies. Chapter 877. Enemies. Gong Kiki smiled proudly. She swept her gaze to the side and smashed a wooden vase beside her with a single slap. The wooden vase shattered into pieces. Jiang Shanke's eyes widened. Gong Coco pretended to be relaxed as she clapped her hands and said, Did you see that? Even if I have a lot of enemies, even if I have the same face, I am not easy to bully. Is that so? Jiang Shanke suddenly pulled out a black object. Gong Coco had never seen that before. She looked at him curiously as he pointed at the wall beside her. A loud bang was heard. Gong Coco was finally unable to maintain her demeanor as she screamed and squatted down. This. Could it be a gun? Her heart was filled with panic. How could she forget that in her current world, there were not only mobile phones and cars, but also guns, cannons, and weapons that could destroy the world? What should she do? If she was discovered to be different and not of the same race, would she be silenced? Jiang Shanke saw that the little cutie had finally calmed down. He held the gun and said faintly, You are so strong, it seems like you are not Kiki. But you look so much like Kiki, there is something strange about it. Speak. Who are you? What is your purpose? As he said that, the black muzzle was pointed at her. Gong Coco remembered that before she could see the bullet's trace, the bullet had already entered the wall. With such speed, she was not confident that she could dodge it every time. Moreover, she was not sure if the dead girl really had a lot of enemies. She was also not sure if those enemies also had such powerful weapons. If because of her appearance, she suffered an unexpected calamity, then she would have died an unjust death. The most important thing was that the man in front of her had a gun in his hand. It was better for her to avoid him for the time being. The eldest princess knew when to yield and when not to. Just try to act spoiled like a brother. Thus, in an extremely short period of time, Gong Keek's expression changed. She blinked her eyes. Her appearance was as innocent as it could be, and as adorable as it could be. In the end, she revealed a sweet smile and shamelessly said, "I'm sorry. Husband, what are you doing? I was just joking with you. You scared me." Husband. Jiang Shanke found it interesting. Seeing her change her expression, he played along and said, "Are you joking? But my wife doesn't have the strength to break the wooden frame easily." Gong Coco's smile froze for a moment, but she quickly revealed an aggrieved expression. "Of course not. It's just that this frame has been in disrepair for a long time, and I'm not relaxed at all. Look, my hand is swollen." She wasn't wrong. As a noble princess, when had she ever done anything herself? Her hand must be swollen. Jiang Shanke saw that her hand was indeed swollen. She had pretended to be light before. When Gong Coco saw that the gun was still pointed at her, she took small steps forward and took out the trump card that she had used against her parents and brother. Tears welled up in her eyes as she bit her red lips and looked at Jiang Shanke. "Why are you still pointing this at me? I already said that I was just joking with you." Jiang Shanke's heart suddenly jumped twice. Damn it. Didn't she know that when she looked at a man with this kind of expression, it would make a man want to ruthlessly ravage her? Jiang Shanke threw the gun on the table and pulled the pitiful little girl into his arms. This was the first time that she was so close to a man. Gong Coco's body tensed up. She had a bad idea in her mind. Now that the gun was on the table and this person was beside her, she only needed to reach out. Her hand was grabbed. Jiang Shanke saw that her white and tender wrist was red and swollen. His eyes flashed with a trace of pity, but his mouth maliciously threatened the little rabbit. "Kiki, only I can protect you. Don't be willful in the future. You still want to run away from home. As long as you leave this door and say that you're not my Jiang Shanke's wife, you'll be taken away by those people in the next second. They won't treat you as gently as I do." Jiang Shanke's words instantly extinguished Gong Coco's restless heart. She even thought that she should wait until this person found his wife's body. This way, everyone would know that the girl was already dead and she was just a passerby who looked like her. Thinking of this, she shamefully continued to act cute. "My hand still hurts. Hubby, can you blow on it?" Her sweet and tender voice made Jiang Shanke's breath tighten. His eyes darkened. He really held Gong Coco's hand and blew on it, then pinched it twice. He didn't know what those people were thinking. How could Gong Coco, who was born in the countryside, have such smooth and tender skin? In addition to her natural beauty, this skin also needed to be nourished with precious materials every day to be able to be so delicate. She was much prettier than Gong Coco. Her eyes were bigger, her eyelashes were longer, her nose was higher, and her mouth was smaller. Although the difference wasn't much, the difference wasn't small. Then there was the temperament that she inadvertently revealed. It was the dignity and arrogance that only a person in a high position could cultivate. Therefore, he didn't treat her as a secret agent or anything else from the beginning. Instead, he was even more curious about her. "Ah!" Gong Coco suddenly exclaimed because Jiang Shanke picked her up. "What are you doing? Where are you taking me?" She stared at Jiang Shanke very vigilantly, looking like she would immediately flee if anything went wrong. Jiang Shanke smiled deeply. "I'm taking you to apply medicine." When he went upstairs, the people outside dared to come in. When they heard the gunshots earlier, they thought that the young master had killed the madam. Now, it seemed that she was fine. Moreover, the young master and madam's relationship seemed to have improved. It was really hard to understand. When they reached the bedroom, Gong Coco was very curious about the low-key luxurious decor. Although the things here weren't as exquisite as those in Daiyu State, they still had a unique flavor. She still liked it. If only her brother could see it too. That way, he could learn the advanced technology here and go back to benefit the country. The poor little girl didn't realize how dangerous it was for her to be in the same room with a man. As expected, Jiang Shanke took the medicine and applied it on her. This medicine was not bad. Once applied, it didn't hurt anymore. Instead, it felt a little cooling. It was really good stuff. After applying the medicine, Jiang Shanke stood up. He saw that Gong Coco was trying to pretend to be normal, but she couldn't help but look around. He secretly found it funny. Those beautiful eyes were filled with curiosity. He couldn't help but rub her head. Gong Coco raised her head and looked at him accusingly. Only her brother could rub her head. Jiang Shanke held back his laughter and raised his eyebrows unhappily. What's wrong? We're husband and wife. You seem to dislike me. Gong Coco was shocked. She had almost forgotten that she was using someone else's identity. She stuck out her tongue embarrassedly and apologized to the girl in her heart. Then she said, "No, I'm just a little tired." Jiang Shanke curled his lips slightly. Tired? Then go wash up and sleep. Chapter 878. Gong Coco nodded. She did want to take a bath, but there were no palace servants here to serve her. She had to do it herself. Thinking about it made her unhappy. She couldn't help but ask, "You look rich, and you have a lot of servants in your family. Do you have servants who specialize in taking baths?" Servants? Jiang Shanke said meaningfully, "You're talking about the maid. Have you forgotten that I used to help you bathe in the past? We're husband and wife, and this is what a husband should do." Jiang Shanke lied without batting an eyelid. Although he said it naturally, the content of his words still shocked Gong Coco. The status of women in Daiyu State was considered high in the four countries, but men still had many wives and concubines. In this place, a man could only marry one woman, and he was obligated to bathe his wife. This was a paradise for women. But she quickly pinched her thigh. What was she thinking? You're not his wife, so don't take advantage of him. His wife just died, and he's so pitiful. If Jiang Shanke knew that Gong Coco pitied him and couldn't bear to labor him, he wouldn't know if he would laugh or be annoyed. Gong Coco said seriously, "No need. You're the head of the household, and you're tired today. I'll bathe myself." Jiang Shanke saw that she didn't fall for his trap and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Since Kiki is taking care of me, then why don't you bathe me today?" Gong Coco widened her eyes. He wanted her, a princess, to bathe someone else. Did this person have a death wish? But she quickly remembered that she wasn't in Daiyu State. She was in an unfamiliar and dangerous place, and she had to rely on the man in front of her. Seeing her struggle, Jiang Shanke said slowly, "Kiki, you used to bathe me when I was tired. Why are you so hesitant today? Or are you not Kiki?" Gong Coco gritted her teeth. She was conflicted. Mother said that a gentleman wouldn't stand under a dangerous wall. She hadn't figured out the situation she was in, so it was best not to be impulsive. She had to bear with it and understand this world better. "You're not willing." The slightly raised male voice carried a hint of threat. Gong Kiki had a bitter expression on her face. If she had known earlier, she would have asked him to help her wash up. Now, as a princess, she actually had to serve someone else. "But I'm really tired." She decided to make a final struggle. Jiang Shanke pretended to be conflicted and thought about it. "How about this, Kiki, you choose. Do you want to help me wash it, or do you want me to help you wash it?" When Gong Yi and Gong Dai were together, Gong Coco was only 15 years old. Gong Qiyu was also a boy, so he had never taught his sister about gender. Therefore, Gong Coco was very lacking in knowledge about the relationship between men and women. In short, she had no sense of shame. Therefore, when Jiang Shanke asked her if she wanted to serve others or enjoy herself, she struggled for a long time before finally choosing to enjoy herself. When Jiang Shanke saw that she was about to go to the guillotine, he couldn't hold back the smile in his eyes and whispered in her ear. "Are you shy, Kiki?" Gong Coco shook her head. She just felt that she wasn't his wife, yet she had stolen his wife's treatment. That was a bit too much. Little did she know that her predecessor had never even seen Jiang Shanke's face a few times, let alone let Jiang Shanke serve her in the shower. The only reason he could lower himself like this was because of her. Dense steam filled the air. Gong Coco once again sighed at how advanced this world was. It was so convenient. No wonder there were no maids who specialized in serving baths. Before Gong Coco took off her clothes, she struggled in her heart. Why don't I wash it myself? But if I say that, what if Jiang Shanke wants me to serve him instead? Gong Coco silently swallowed those words and stretched out her hands. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows and looked at her. Gong Coco was puzzled. What are you looking at? You're helping me bathe, but you're not helping me undress. Today, Yu Tian had obediently helped her change her clothes. Jiang Shanke suddenly had an epiphany. This little girl, she really wanted him to help her undress. Looking at her natural appearance, could it be that every time she took a bath, she was served by someone else? Jiang Shanke slowly reached out and unbuttoned her coat bit by bit. Looking at her expression, she really didn't have any sense of shyness. There were only two explanations. First, her nature was wanton, and she was not reserved in front of strange men. Second, she lived in a very isolated place. Not only did she not receive any education in this area, but she was also not enlightened. When Jiang Shanke was unbuttoning her coat, he suddenly bent his finger and flicked Gong Coco's chest. Gong Coco instantly covered her chest and glared at him. Why did you hit me? Well, she was the second one. Her clothes were peeled off by a pair of magical hands. The girl stood in the bathroom wearing only her underwear. That exquisite curve was enough to drive all men crazy. However, she didn't know it. Her body kept shaking, as if she was very uncomfortable. What's wrong? His voice became more seductive. His gaze fell on her body, and he found that her fair skin was full of faint red marks. Was she allergic to skin? Gong Coco didn't notice anything different in his voice at all. She pouted and said, "The material of the clothes here is so bad. I feel so uncomfortable wearing it." Jiang Shanke glanced at the clothes on the floor. Although they weren't good, they were definitely not bad. However, such clothes had caused many marks on her body. It could be seen that her skin was really delicate to the extreme. Thinking of this, Jiang Shanke's eyes darkened. What material do you like? I'll get someone to make a few more for you. Gong Coco blinked. She felt that this wasn't good. She wasn't his wife, but if she rejected him, would she have to wear clothes of this material? That was too much. She took advantage of him now, but she would return it in the future. Thus, she said rather embarrassedly, "Do you have cloud sky brocade here? If you really can't. Cloud flower brocade is also fine." Jiang Shanke's eyes flashed. Gong Coco stuck out her tongue in annoyance. Silk. The silk of the three slumber silkworm is fine. Although he didn't know much about fabrics, Jiang Shanke still knew that with the advancement of modern technology, the three slumber silkworm had long transformed into the four slumber silkworm. However, they could use medicine to turn the four slumber silkworm back to the three slumber silkworm, but it would take some time. He coaxed softly, I'll prepare some silk clothes for you first. As for the 3 slumber silkworm you want, I'll prepare it. Take a shower first, and I'll apply some medicine for you later before you sleep, okay? Gong Coco nodded. She felt that this person was really good. Look at how gentle and understanding he was, and how he treated his wife. What Yu Tian said today definitely wasn't the truth. There must be a reason for their secret marriage. This was clearly a good man who loved and spoiled his wife. Gong Coco was just about to say some words of gratitude when she heard him say, "Do you need me to help you take off your underwear?" Chapter 879. Gong Coco said generously, "Take it off." Her straightforwardness made Jiang Shanke raise his eyebrows. Gong Coco saw him dilly-dallying and became impatient. She directly took off her clothes and entered the bathtub. Then, she sighed comfortably. Jiang Shanke looked at the pitiful pure white underwear on the floor and suddenly felt his breathing quicken. This little girl was really not afraid of provoking fire. At this time, Gong Coco glanced at him and ordered as if it was a matter of course, "Massage my back. Also, do you have any beauty products here that can nourish the skin?" Speaking of this, Gong Coco was a little disgusted with this bathroom. In the past, there were 48 kinds of essence in her bathroom. There were some that had been dripped into the water beforehand, some that had been used after bathing, and some that had been used to nourish her body. Every part of her body had been nourished with different essences, and even her hair had been nourished with good quality jade nectar. If she didn't have those things here, how rough would she have become? Jiang Shanke's charming and gentle feeling in his heart was interrupted by this bothersome little vixen. He thought for a moment and pressed the call button on the side. "Housekeeper, bring some women's skin care products." He glanced at Gong Coco's satin-like hair and added, "And hair care products, I want all of them." With that, he released the call button. Not long after, a set of top-notch skin care products for rich ladies appeared at the bathroom door. In the past, the Jiang family did not have such things, but in the future, they would. Smelling these fragrant things, Gong Coco was obviously in a good mood. Jiang Shanke saw that she was really lying motionless in the bathtub, waiting for him to serve her. He sighed in his heart and suppressed some of his restless desires. First, he carefully wiped her body. The skin that he touched was much better than he had imagined. It was white and smooth. Jiang Shanke thought in his heart. Compared to her, the baby's skin was nothing. Moreover, she had developed very well. It would be too much if she had more, and too little if she had less. His gaze went all the way down, and his eyes became more and more fiery. This heaven-sent beauty must belong to him. The only reason he had been holding back until now was because he was afraid of scaring the little cutie. Jiang Shanke looked at Gong Coco's defenseless face and thought to himself, giving her a bath is really an unbearable torture. But the other party's face was full of disdain, as if he didn't serve her well. Gong Coco really despised it. This man must be lying. The strength he used to serve her was sometimes light and sometimes heavy. It was obvious that it was his first time. How could he say that he often helped his wife bathe? Big liar. Although she treated people with sincerity, she was not easy to fool, okay? However, she had been tormenting him for so long today, so she decided not to expose him for the time being. In order to avoid unnecessary complications, she had to endure and sleep first. Jiang Shanke didn't expect that the first time he served someone, he would be caught by the newly captured little cutie. If he knew that the little thing was so smart, he wouldn't have done that. Serving people was a very tiring thing, but what was even more tiring was applying skincare products for Gong Coco. Under Gong Coco's guidance from time to time, Jiang Shanke was already able to control his strength. At this time, Gong Coco was lying on the bed with her black hair spread out. Her expression was innocent, like a child who didn't know anything about the world. However, her appearance was exquisite, and her body was naked. She was extremely seductive. The contrast between innocence and seduction made Jiang Shanka restless. Even his breathing became hot. However, he was very patient. When facing the world's most delicious food, he should slowly savor her beauty. If it wasn't for his trembling fingers on Gong Coco's back, others would really think that the great CEO was sexually indifferent. Raise your fingers and rub them with your palms. Gong Coco ordered with her eyes closed. Because the great CEO's fingers had thin calluses, she was very uncomfortable. Hearing this, the great CEO was stunned. He actually obediently raised his fingers and rubbed them with his palms. Gong Coco sighed comfortably. All this time, it was the palace maids who applied the perfume for her. The palace maid's hands had to be very soft to have the honor of being chosen. But gradually, Gong Coco found the beauty of the man's application. The woman's hands were soft, but warm. The man's hands were very hot, as if they were wrapped in a ball of fire. It made her feel like she was being burned by fire. It was hot, but also comfortable. After rubbing for a while, she actually felt that although the man's hands weren't soft, when the rough palm touched her skin, it would leave a tingling sensation. This feeling was very novel, and she couldn't help but moan. And, so comfortable. Her tender voice was like a little feather, gently brushing Jiang Shanka's back. His Adam's apple quickly moved a few times, and he accidentally used a bit more strength. Gong Coco couldn't help but moan in pain. There was a trace of pleasure in the pain, and the great CEO was completely ignited. This seductress could actually inadvertently seduce him to the point of losing his rationality. He suddenly flipped Gong Coco over and said in a hoarse voice, "Your back is done. I'll help you rub the front." Gong Coco was a little unhappy. She hadn't even shouted for him to stop, and this person was already so daring. But when she met Jiang Shanka's dangerous gaze, Gong Coco suppressed her reprimand. She had almost forgotten that this wasn't Daiyu State. Gong Coco suddenly felt a little wronged. If she was still in Daiyu State, she wouldn't have to be so careful. Jiang Shanka saw that the little cutie was originally fine, but suddenly felt wronged. That sad little look of hers made his heart clench. His rationality slightly broke free from his desire, and he asked, "What's wrong?" Perhaps it was because Jiang Shanka had bathed her and helped her apply the fragrance, so Gong Coco wasn't particularly repulsed by him. She immediately replied in a wronged manner. "I miss home. I want to go home. Go home." This time, Jiang Shanka was completely awake. He bent over, and his handsome face with distinct features moved closer. The coldness disappeared, and there was a hint of gentleness. His finger gently lifted Gong Coco's chin, and he asked in a low voice, "Why do you want to go home? Am I not good to you?" Gong Coco didn't know how to explain it to him, so she simply snuggled under the blanket and ignored him. Jiang Shanka thought for a while, and then he conveniently laid down beside her. Seeing that the blanket had curled up into a ball, he inexplicably patted it and said gently, "I'm good to you. I don't want to go home, okay?" When had the great CEO ever coaxed someone like this? However, Gong Coco ignored him. She hadn't forgotten that this person had lied to her. She only didn't bicker with him because he had served her so well. She didn't want to stay here. She wanted to go home. Only her brother was the man who treated her the best in the world. Jiang Shanka suddenly felt that he was a little helpless when it came to this little thing. This was new. The great CEO who had always been victorious in the business world was actually helpless when it came to a little girl. He gently patted the blanket in his arms. The little person under the blanket gave him a sense of distance. It seemed that he had to change his strategy. Chapter 880. Have you found anything? After coaxing Gong Coco to sleep, Jiang Shanke did not rest. Instead, he went to the study. In the study, the butler had been waiting for him for a long time. Young master, Xiaoheng replied. He said that Madam's crew booked the entire Full Moon Lake for filming today. Other than the crew, no one else was there. Madam only became different after filming a scene where she fell into the water. Someone said that when Madam fell into the water, her expression was strange. It was as if she fell directly into the water. After falling into the water, she only got up half an hour later. Others thought that she drowned. Half an hour, Jiang Shanke tapped his fingers on the table. Have you found the body? No, there is no body in the lake. Jiang Shanke smiled. They couldn't find the body. He ordered, continue to search. Find out who did this. Also, you have to remember that the current madam is the real madam. Understand? Understood. The butler lowered his head. He should be the second person besides Jiang Shanke who noticed that something was wrong with Gong Coco. Go. After giving his orders, Jiang Shanke went to the bedroom. When he saw the little thing on the bed, his eyes couldn't help but soften. He didn't know why, but from the first time he saw her, he wanted to raise her like a princess. He had seen the original Gong Coco a few times. Although they looked similar, there was a big difference in all aspects. When she found him and wanted to marry him, her purpose was to use his name to scare and get rid of her family. The reason why he agreed was because her dead mother had saved his mother once. His mother begged him with great difficulty. Although he was unhappy, he still agreed. However, they only had a small wedding and did not register their marriage. Jiang Shanke didn't like the previous Gong Coco. It wasn't because she grew up in the countryside, but because she was too narrow-minded and had too many things on her mind. When she looked at people, her eyes were gloomy. The previous Gong Coco also didn't like Jiang Shanke. She liked Meng Xiaoqing and worked hard in the entertainment industry because of him. This contract marriage was considered respectful to each other. However, Jiang Shanke was quite nice to the old Gong Coco. She wanted to participate in the script that Meng Xiaoqing was in, so he sent her in. However, he did not expect that she would die for no reason. However, the old Gong Coco disappeared and a new Gong Coco appeared. Although it was hard to explain, Jiang Shanke admitted that he liked this arrangement. In the past, Gong Coco was just an insignificant person to him, but from now on, things were different. He pinched Gong Coco's sleeping face and smiled from the bottom of his heart. Only in a carefree environment could someone like her grow up. She was like a little person who was like a ray of light. Just a casual smile could drive away the darkness around him. This little guy was his. The next day, Gong Coco was woken up by the heat. It was early spring, and it was still a little cold. Why was it so hot? Soon, she found the problem. It was because there was a man hugging her from behind. The man's scorching body temperature baked her delicate body, telling her the situation she was in. She was no longer a princess who was held in the palm of someone's hand. In this unfamiliar place, she was just a homeless person. Gong Coco was sad for a little while, but she quickly pulled herself together. She had to think of a way to go back. If she couldn't go back, she would work hard to practice martial arts. The sooner she broke through the 9th level, the sooner she could comprehend the Tao. This way, she would have a chance to go to her mother's place. She believed that she and her brother would definitely meet again at her mother's place. With this thought, Gong Coco's depression was swept away and she was full of energy again. She wanted to get up, but she felt the arm around her waist tighten. She turned to look at Jiang Shanke and saw that he was sleeping soundly. She had to say, this person was quite good-looking. She saw so many people at the theater yesterday, and many of them were quite good-looking. However, this person was better looking than all of them. He was even better looking than the famous Meng Xiaoqing. It was just that he looked stern and unsmiling. He should be in his 20s, right? She didn't know how old his children were. He was so rich, so he should have a lot of children. Gong Coco's thoughts ran wild. Feeling the little cutie staring at him, but not moving, Jiang Shanke opened his eyes. His eyes were extremely dark, like a ball of ink, as if it could suck in people's souls. It was a pair of dangerous eyes. What are you thinking about? When he just woke up, his voice had a trace of hoarseness, which grated on people's ears for no reason. Gong Coco shrunk her neck. Although it was her first time sleeping with someone, because Jiang Shanke's body was very warm, she was very comfortable and didn't feel any discomfort. Hearing him ask, she subconsciously told him what she was thinking. I'm thinking about how many children you have. After saying this, her eyes suddenly widened. Wait a minute, her identity was now his wife. Which wife didn't know how many children her husband had? She was prepared to escape in the afternoon. Now that she exposed herself, the other party must have found out that she was fake. God! Was he going to shoot her? He felt the little fellow's body suddenly tense up in his arms. Jiang Shanke laughed sullenly. The hand that was hugging Gong Coco tightened slightly. He felt that her expression was very cute. I almost forgot. Because I don't come back often, Kiki doesn't understand me. He found an excuse for Gong Coco. Gong Coco's body instantly relaxed. Jiang Shanke laughed and said in her ear, I don't have children. Why don't Kiki give birth to one for me? Gong Coco's eyes widened. You're so old, but you don't have children. That one sentence instantly shattered the warm and loving morning. Jiang Shanke couldn't help but stare at her and ask, Am I very old? He was only 27 years old. Gong Coco nodded without hesitation. Where we come from, people your age are. She paused for a while, suddenly annoyed at herself for being so stupid. What did she mean by where she came from? Seeing Gong Coco scrunch up her face again, Jiang Shanke couldn't help but laugh. Why was she so interesting? Her inner thoughts were so rich. It caused her expression to change constantly. But no matter how she changed, she was still very cute. I'm hungry. Gong Coco stiffly tried to change the topic. Their world was different from this world. In this world, men could only marry one wife. Wouldn't it be normal to have few or no children? Fortunately, Jiang Shanke didn't have any intention of harping on it. Gong Coco secretly sighed, but she felt that there was something hard poking her from behind. For some reason, Gong Coco instantly thought of the gun she saw last night. Oh no! She must have let it slip. Jiang Shanke suspected her, so he took out the gun. Feeling Gong Coco's body tense up again, Jiang Shanke nodded in satisfaction. This girl finally understood and knew how to be nervous and shy. He smiled and said in the most gentle voice in his life. I'm hungry too. Gong Coco became even more nervous. What did this person mean? He pointed a gun at her and told her that he was hungry. Chapter 881. If you're hungry, then go and have your breakfast. Gong Coco stuttered as she replied. She instinctively moved away from Jiang Shanke to avoid that dangerous weapon. At this moment, she was completely naked. In Jiang Shanke's hands, her skin was as smooth as silk. Jiang Shanke narrowed his eyes and revealed an expression of enjoyment. A fire ignited in his eyes. His heart softened last night and he didn't eat this little fellow. Then, let's do it now. With that thought, Jiang Shanke suddenly flipped over and pressed Gong Coco under his body. Feeling that hard thing dangerously pressing against her, Gong Coco was stunned. Could it be that she could control this thing without using her hands? Because at this moment, both of Jiang Shanka's hands were by her side. Seeing that Gong Coco was staring at him suspiciously, her delicate face and big bright eyes were tempting Jiang Shanka to go deeper. He licked his lips and stared at her as if she was his prey. He said in a hoarse voice, "I want to eat you." Gong Coco was completely confused. Was it what she understood? This person wanted to eat her. He wanted to eat her flesh. Could this be how this world treats outsiders? He realized that she wasn't Gong Coco, so he wanted to eat her. She had nurtured her delicate skin for 18 years. She didn't want to give it to a man-eating monster. Gong Coco was shocked, scared and angry. She wasn't going to sit still and wait for death. Therefore, that pair of beautiful eyes turned, and in the end, she actually nodded. Seeing that she didn't resist, Jiang Shanka raised his eyebrows in surprise. "You're really willing to let me eat you?" Through the thin material of his clothes, Gong Coco could feel the shocking heat from his body. It was clearly a matter of life and death, but she had a strange feeling. It was as if her body was soft, as if he was melting her. She suddenly pulled herself back to reality. She decided to let him lower his guard first. "I'll let you eat, but don't come so close." Jiang Shanka's expression was even more confused. "You want to take the initiative?" Gong Kiki quickly nodded her head, but her entire body was tense as she guarded against his gun. Jiang Shanka got up and knelt on the bed. He wanted to see what this little thing was going to do. However, without the cover of the blanket, Gong Kiki lay naked on the dark bed sheets like a banshee. The overwhelming temptation made Jiang Shanka have the urge to press down on her again without caring about anything else. At this moment, Gong Coco suddenly. She sprung up at an extremely fast speed, grabbed Jiang Shanka's gun, and pointed the muzzle elsewhere. Jiang Shanka was shocked, but the next second, Gong Coco pushed him down on the bed. Gong Coco used her other hand to pinch his vital part accurately. She did this series of actions very smoothly. However, the strange thing was that Jiang Shanka let out a muffled groan before she exerted any force on his vital organs. It sounded like he was in pain. What was even stranger was that there was a tinge of pleasure in that pain. Gong Coco frowned and then realized that there was something wrong with the gun she was holding. It was hard, but it was so hot that it didn't feel like metal. Her series of actions made Jiang Shanka gasp. His face darkened and then turned red. Did this girl know what she was doing? "Let go." "No." Gong Coco answered instinctively. She even tried to pull it out, but she couldn't. At that moment, Jiang Shanka's expression became even more interesting. Gong Coco suddenly thought. Could it be that she had made a mistake? This person didn't have a gun. She remembered that she had once seen a father-in-law with a scary lump of flesh on his neck. Could it be? Gong Coco pinched it again, then suddenly retracted her hand. She wiped it on the bed sheets with a look of disgust. If that was really the case, then wouldn't she be embarrassed? She had even grabbed someone else's flesh. Ah! How disgusting! Jiang Shanka didn't know how to describe his feelings. Any man wouldn't be able to stand being treated so rudely, okay? His face was dripping with water as he glared fiercely at the innocent girl on the bed. Gong Coco seemed to realize that she had done something wrong. She didn't move and looked at him pitifully. It wasn't her fault. She didn't want to touch it either. If it wasn't for his misleading words, it would have been scary. Gong Coco lowered her head guiltily. Jiang Shanka looked at her. He was really angry and helpless. Tell me, you really don't know, what is this on my body? His tone was very cold. It made Gong Coco feel like she had done something wrong and was being scolded by her brother. She shook her head sadly. She really didn't know. If she knew, why would she touch it? Jiang Shanka felt speechless for the first time. What era did this woman live in? How could she not know the difference between men and women and not know anything about men? Perhaps only those unmarried girls in ancient times didn't know about these things. Suddenly, something flashed through his mind. He thought of the strange words Gong Coco used. What husband, what servant? He suddenly had a strange thought. She was talking about the people from their place. He already had so many children at such a young age. Also, her abnormally delicate skin and the noble aura that only came from a person of high status. She was clearly very quick-witted, but she was very ignorant of everything around her. Could it be, she was from ancient times? After living for over 20 years, Jiang Shanka was shocked by his own thoughts. He stared at the girl in front of him without any change in his expression. That sharp gaze made Gong Coco tremble slightly. Coco, do you know who is the emperor now? He tried to ask in a calm tone. Gong Coco was confused. Did he realize that she was an outsider or not? How could she know who was the emperor now? I didn't leave the house before. I don't know who is in power now. Gong Coco's answer confirmed Jiang Shanka's suspicions. His heart beat twice and he suddenly said. So, you're not from this world, and you're not her. You. Gong Coco's eyes widened, but she quickly calmed down. It was good that she was found out. She didn't have to pretend anymore. She gathered her inner strength in her palm and her body was ready to move. If she really couldn't, she could still run. Jiang Shanka seemed to have seen through Gong Coco's premeditated plan and threatened her. Although you're not her, you have a face that is exactly the same as her. So what? Gong Coco frowned in annoyance. How could she encounter such a thing? It was so troublesome. Jiang Shanka smiled slightly. Now, her body is gone. That means that people will only think that you are her. And she really has a lot of enemies. Gong Coco gritted her teeth. I'm not easy to bully. Jiang Shanka suddenly laughed. Do you know why she married me? She and I are actually not husband and wife. Why? Gong Coco asked curiously. Because I can protect her. His tone had a hint of bewitchment. I can protect her, and protect you. Chapter 882. Gong Coco froze for a moment. She wasn't stupid. This person could tell that she wasn't from this world, yet he said, if I can protect her, I can also protect you. Did this mean that he was willing to take her in? Jiang Shanka sat on the edge of the bed and smiled slowly. Perhaps you don't know how our world deals with outsiders. If they find out that you're not from this world, they'll capture you and do research on you. They'll do all sorts of experiments on you. Do you know what experiments are? Gong Coco looked at him blankly. Experiments are to inject different drugs into your body and test your reactions. The process is worse than death. Even if you die, they'll slice you up and study you. But, you're so precious, they won't let you die so easily. If you're captured, they'll torture you for decades. When that time comes, you'll only be able to eat tasteless liquid food and live a life of darkness like a prisoner. Gong Coco was already frightened, but she pretended to look at him calmly with her big eyes. You're lying to me, right? How can it be so scary? Jiang Shanka raised his eyebrows slightly. If you're captured by good people, you might be fine. But if you're captured by bad people, your fate might be even worse than what I just said. Gong Coco saw that his expression didn't seem to be fake. She thought for a moment and showed a pitiful expression. Then, you mean, you're a good person? Jiang Shanke looked at her meaningfully. Of course I'm a good person. Sitting in the nanny van, Gong Coco still didn't understand how she signed a contract with Jiang Shanke. Jiang Shanke had to protect her safety, help her integrate into this world quickly, help her keep her secret, and provide her with a satisfactory high-quality life. And what she had to do was to be a good wife during the contract. Wife? Gong Coco looked at Yu Tian strangely and asked, "What do you think makes a good wife?" Yu Tian was stunned and said shyly, "I don't know. I'm not married yet, then what do you think?" Yu Tian thought for a while and said embarrassedly, "Isn't it said on the internet? There's only one kind of wife that a man wants the most, and that's the kind that below the bed is a rich lady, and on the bed." On the bed? Gong Coco asked shamelessly. You already know the answer. Yu Tian gave Gong Coco a push in embarrassment. Since they had arrived at the set, she quickly got out of the car and slipped away. Gong Coco was a little confused. As soon as she got out of the car, she saw her agent. How did she know her? This was the homework that Jiang Shanke gave her in the morning. He let her see a lot of photos and understand the basic network. Her agent was a woman in her 40s. She didn't seem to like her because the first time she looked at her, there was a hint of hostility. Gong Coco was puzzled. Wasn't she the one who brought her here? Why was he still hostile towards her? At this moment, Xuewen walked over and said with a smile, "Sister Yun, I already said that you don't have to worry about me. Just keep an eye on Xiaofeng." When she saw Xuewen, Lu Yun's expression instantly changed. "No, I'm here to look for him today. You do what you need to do." Only then did Gong Coco realize that she and Xuewen had the same agent. Then why was Xuewen so cold towards her, as if they weren't close? Before Gong Coco could understand, Lu Yun walked over. When she saw her, Lu Yun's attitude immediately became bad. "Gong Coco, how many times have I told you? Don't cause trouble for Wen on set. Do you think it's easy for you to get into this set? If it weren't for me and Wen, the director wouldn't have let you in. It's fine if you're not grateful, but you're stealing the limelight. Do you believe that I'll make you leave the set?" Gong Coco frowned. She was the princess of Daiyu State. No one dared to speak to her like this. "Bastard! Who do you think you are? What right do you have to order me around?" Lu Yun frowned and shouted exaggeratedly, "Gong Coco, you're really bold. How dare you speak to me like this?" Her shout attracted the attention of the other people in the set. However, this was Gong Coco's private matter, so they couldn't interfere. They could only pretend that they didn't hear anything and walked away. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Gong Coco frowned. She felt that it was really inconvenient to have no one to order her around, so she had to do it herself. Gong Coco took a step forward. The aura that belonged to the eldest princess made Lu Yun feel a little timid. She grew up in a feudal era where the strong preyed on the weak. The aristocratic aura that came from her bones was especially evident when she was angry. "You said that you're my agent. Then I don't want you anymore. I want someone else." Lu Yun wanted to be firm and tell her that she couldn't change her agent just because she wanted to. However, in front of Gong Keek's excessively beautiful eyes that were filled with anger, she actually became weak and stuttered as she spoke. You can't change me." Gong Coco was even more furious. There was nothing she couldn't do. After thinking about it, she immediately took out her phone and called Jiang Shanke clumsily. Jiang Shanke was already in the company. He was in a meeting. At this moment, the marketing manager was angrily talking about his next sales plan. At this moment, Jiang Shanke's phone rang. Everyone stared at Jiang Shanke because the CEO's phone never rang when he was in a meeting. This must be his personal phone. Everyone thought that Jiang Shanke would hang up the phone. After all, there were many old directors present. However, Jiang Shanke suddenly knocked on the table with a pen. Pause. Rest for 10 minutes. After saying that, he got up and walked to the rest area. He pressed the answer button, leaving everyone looking at each other. Coco. When Gong Coco heard his voice, she instantly became more confident. Although she was no longer a princess, she had made a contract with someone else. Jiang Shanke, I'm being bullied. Are you going to help me? When the 3 words, Jiang Shanke, came out of Gong Coco's mouth, the room instantly fell silent. Everyone on the set was pretending to be busy, but in fact, their ears were focused on this area. They didn't know the reason why Gong Coco suddenly joined the cast. Many people guessed that she had used unspoken rules to get the position. Now that they heard such a big shot from her mouth, they couldn't help but think to themselves. Could this be Gong Coco's new sugar daddy? How could she be related to CEO Jiang? Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows slightly. A trace of a smile flashed in his eyes. On the phone, his voice, which was as pleasant as a cello, came through. Who dares to bully my baby? Tell me, I'll help you. Jiang Shanke's voice was neither loud nor soft. Everyone in the meeting room heard it. Oh my God! What did they hear? The person who called CEO Jiang wasn't a very important multinational company partner, but CEO Jiang's lover. Chapter 883. Gong Coco smiled proudly. My agent said that I was disobedient and that I got into the crew because of her and Shuewen. Jiang Shanke sneered. I was the one who asked you to get into the crew. It has nothing to do with them. Gong Coco was stunned. She looked at Lu Yun, who was a little uneasy, and said, You are too shameless. It was Jiang Shanke who asked me to join the crew. How can you say that it was because of you and Shuewen? Gong Coco didn't know how to beat around the bush. She was just asking the question as it was. Lu Yun was speechless. Was it really President Jiang on the other end of the phone with Gong Coco? That was impossible. Didn't they have a bad relationship? But if it wasn't President Jiang, how did Gong Coco know that it was President Jiang who asked her to join the crew? Seeing that she didn't speak, Gong Coco pouted and said to Jiang Shanke, She just warned me not to steal other people's limelight, or she would kick me out of the crew. Jiang Shanke's eyes flashed with anger when he heard that. How could his little cutie be threatened by others? So he sent a message out with another phone, but he was coaxing her gently. Okay, don't be angry. It won't be good if you get angry. I've already helped you teach her a lesson. She will disappear from your sight soon. Gong Coco thought for a moment and took the opportunity to add a request. Then I want to change my agent. Okay. Change. He paused. Did Shuewen bully you too? Should I help you deal with her? Gong Coco thought for a moment. Although Shuewen didn't like her, they didn't have any grudges, so she said, You don't have to do anything to her. Just help me get rid of this agent. Seeing that Gong Coco was serious, Lu Yun finally panicked. Are you really talking to President Jiang on the phone? Lu Yun could be said to have asked the entire crew's thoughts. Gong Coco frowned and didn't want to talk to her. At this moment, Lu Yun's phone rang. She picked it up and her face turned pale. What? Fire me. I didn't do anything. Gong Coco was relieved to see that Jiang Shanke acted so quickly. She ignored Lu Yun's shouts and walked to the side with the phone. He said briskly. You're really fast. Thank you. Jiang Shanke smiled. Little guy, you've learned how to intimidate others so quickly. Gong Coco blushed. Would she say that she had been a fox using the tiger's might since she was young? She thickened her skin and said in a low voice, "Anyway, you said you would protect me. Have you figured out how to be a good wife?" Jiang Shanka's words were like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The entire conference room was boiling with excitement. Their president was actually married. Married? What's that sound? Gong Coco asked curiously. Jiang Shanka glanced over and all the voices disappeared. He continued to say gently, "You haven't answered me yet." Gong Coco thought for a moment. "Since you've done me a favor, I'll repay you when we get back tonight." "Oh. How are you going to repay me?" "Oh, you'll know tonight." Gong Coco hung up the phone after saying that. What a magical thing. She could talk and hang up whenever she wanted. On the other side, Lu Yun had already been dragged out by the director. Xue Wen was also stunned when she was suddenly informed of the change of manager. She had been watching the show from the side, but at this moment, how could she not understand that Gong Coco had really found a big sugar daddy? Hence, Lu Yun was changed just like that. There was no room for negotiation. Gong Coco didn't know that her phone call had skyrocketed her status in the crew. The director hurriedly ran over and said seriously, "Kiki, why would I bother Director Jiang if there's anything? He's my friend in the crew. If there's anything, just say the word. Uncle Zhang will help you solve it." Gong Coco looked at him strangely. At this moment, the entire crew was a little chaotic. After Lu Yun was chased away, Xue Wen also asked the director for leave to return to the company. Gong Coco's scenes were brought forward. It was still a scene with Meng Xiaoqing. First, they finished filming yesterday's scenes, then there was a scene where they drank and chatted happily together. When the set fell into silence again, Meng Xiaoqing finally arrived. Although he was frightened yesterday, he wasn't injured at all, so he still came to the set today. Most importantly, he had thought about it all night and decided to thank Gong Coco. Before filming started, he went up to Gong Coco. "Kiki. Yesterday, thank you." Meng Xiaoqing said this unnaturally. Because Gong Coco liked him, he had always avoided her. This was the first time he took the initiative to talk to her. Gong Coco shook her head nonchalantly. "It's okay. Yesterday, Meng Xiaoqing had taken the bullet for her. Last night, the director had fired the person hanging on the wire and sent him to the police station. She didn't know how the director had negotiated with Meng Xiaoqing's team in private. What she knew was that there was another person in the crew who didn't get along with her and might harm her again." Seeing Gong Coco staring at Lu Lan, who was touching up her makeup, he was a little unhappy. In the past, Gong Coco's eyes were always on him. When did she ever look at someone else? So he said carelessly, "To express my gratitude, I'll treat you to lunch." Gong Coco glanced at him and realized that he hadn't left. She wanted to reject him at first, but then she thought that in order to quickly understand the world, it was best to observe more. She couldn't just focus on one thing, so she nodded and agreed. Meng Xiaoqing was delighted because he felt that Gong Coco still liked him. Also, he looked at Gong Coco from the corner of his eye. He realized that Gong Coco was actually quite good-looking. She had such delicate skin, big bright eyes, and an indescribable air of nobility. It was nobility. People couldn't help but be attracted to her. The shooting in the morning was very fast. Meng Xiaoqing brought Gong Coco to a restaurant near the set. The restaurant was very secluded and was a place he frequented often. It was Gong Coco's first time out with someone. Everything around her was very novel. Smelling the fragrance in the air, she suddenly couldn't wait. The food in this world was very delicious. She wanted to eat more today. Thus, Gong Kiki waved her hand and said, "Give me a portion of your signature dishes." Meng Xiaoqing opened his mouth but didn't say anything in the end. He didn't believe that a female celebrity like Gong Coco could eat that much. But after the dishes were served, Gong Coco overturned Meng Xiaoqing's understanding. During this time, he couldn't even get a word in because Gong Kiki was eating very happily. Although her movements were still very ladylike, her speed was very fast. Just by watching her eat, Meng Xiaoqing actually felt a little hungry. But as a young hunk, he was very picky and put down the food after 2 mouthfuls. Chapter 884. Gong Coco saw that he was eating so delicately. She blinked and used the serving chopsticks to add a piece of prawn for him. "Thank you for treating me to a meal. Is it because I've eaten too much that you're embarrassed to eat?" Her simple and direct words stunned Meng Xiaoqing. He looked at Gong Coco in amusement. "Didn't your manager tell you to maintain your figure and not eat too much?" Gong Coco was shocked. Could it be that she had exposed herself again? Her adorable look made Meng Xiaoqing even more amused. He reached out to touch Gong Coco's head and said seriously, "It's okay, continue eating. I heard that you fired your manager. Aren't you afraid of people talking about you now?" Gong Coco nodded as if she understood, but she was much more careful. Speaking of this, Meng Xiaoqing couldn't help but ask, "Oh yeah, President Jiang. Who is he to you?" The whole morning, the crew had been talking about Gong Coco hooking up with a big shot. He felt a little uncomfortable because he thought that Gong Coco liked him. Gong Coco blinked. She wanted to say that they were now a contractual couple, but then remembered that they had a secret marriage, so she compromised and said, "He's now my backer." Meng Xiaoqing was amused by her straightforward words. He looked at Gong Coco's eyes. They were clean and clear, without any distracting thoughts. Her words were also not ambiguous. He didn't know why, but he was sure that she and Jiang Shanke didn't have the kind of relationship that others thought. Just then, Gong Coco suddenly heard some noise. She turned her head and saw a group of people surrounding the building opposite. She asked curiously, "What are they doing?" Meng Xiaoqing looked over and quickly realized that something was wrong. "Oh no! Someone is jumping off the building." "Jumping off the building? It's suicide," Meng Xiaoqing said as he pointed to the top of the building. There was indeed a person standing at the edge. Gong Coco asked curiously, "She wants to die. But why?" In her opinion, this world was so beautiful, especially to women. It was much better than their era. Why did that woman want to die? Let's go take a look. Meng Xiaoqing thought that she wanted to join in the fun and didn't want her to go. The police will be there later. As a public figure, you shouldn't show your face in public. Gong Coco thought for a moment, then suddenly reached out and tore off a section of the tablecloth. Meng Xiaoqing was stunned. This tablecloth is very thick. Then he saw Gong Coco cover her face with the tablecloth and smile at him. "Isn't that enough? Don't come over. Don't come any closer. He doesn't love me anymore, so I might as well die. Miss Lin. Don't be impulsive. You're still so young, it's not worth it for a man." On the top floor, the girl in black was facing off against a large group of policemen. And in a place where the girl couldn't see, there were policemen who were preparing to sneak up on her and pull her down. Gong Coco and Meng Xiaoqing watched from below. Because everyone's attention was on the stage, no one noticed the 2 oddly dressed people. Meng Xiaoqing didn't want to come no matter what, but Gong Coco was surprisingly strong. He had dragged him here by force. He could only pray that he wouldn't be recognized. He didn't want to have any scandals with Gong Coco. "Let's go." Meng Xiaoqing tugged at Gong Coco's sleeve, but Gong Coco didn't move. She was listening attentively to what the girl was saying. Why did he break up with me? I was so good to him, but he fell in love with someone else and even wanted to marry her. Why? The girl's heart-wrenching voice made Gong Coco a little confused. What did she mean by love? Why did she want to commit suicide if she didn't love him? It was so good to be alive. Miss Lin, please come down. Mr. Li will be here soon. If he sees you committing suicide, he won't be happy. The girl smiled. You're lying to me. She stepped back slowly. Today is his wedding day. He won't be here. When I called him earlier, I said I wanted to commit suicide. He said, if you want to die, then go ahead. At this moment, the policemen who were secretly approaching had found the right opportunity. They pounced on the girl while she was talking. At this moment, a sudden change happened. They didn't expect the girl to dodge. She turned around and jumped down the stairs. Miss Lin. There were screams coming from downstairs. The policemen upstairs couldn't bear to watch. They didn't expect such a good life to be lost just like that. But what they didn't expect was that there were continuous screams coming from downstairs. The police officer was a little puzzled. He leaned on the armrest and looked down. The scene in front of him stunned him. He saw that the girl who had jumped down didn't fall to her death. She was caught in midair. That person was holding on to the banner of the building and shaking it in midair. Both of them were suspended in midair. Oh my God. Quick, pinch me. Did that person just fly up? Superman. Spider-Man. It seemed to be a woman. She even covered her face. Could she be a hidden martial arts master? Can someone explain to us how she just tiptoed and jumped up the tree? Is this the legendary Qinggong? The most surprised person was Meng Xiaoqing. Just as everyone was screaming, the girl jumped down the building. At the same time, the girl beside him flew forward at an outrageous speed to catch her. She actually managed to catch him. And now, Gong Coco was holding the girl's waist with one hand and holding on to the banner with the other. Others felt that it was very difficult for her, but only Gong Coco knew that she was quite relaxed. Why did you seek death? Gong Coco asked, puzzled. The girl's face was ghastly pale. Sometimes, people seeking death depended on that one breath. But after she jumped down, she regretted it. Because it was too scary. She regretted it when she thought of how she would be smashed into a pulp while that man would still get married and have children. She even felt that she was too stupid to do this for a man. But she didn't expect that after she jumped down, she would be saved. Why did you seek death? The girl heard the person who saved her ask. I don't want to die. The girl stammered. Especially now that her feet were in the air, that fear rushed from her feet to her scalp. You don't want to die again. Gong Coco raised her eyebrows slightly. She loosened her grip, wanting to teach this suicidal person a lesson. So you sought death just to scare people? The girl felt the strength around her waist loosen. She was so frightened that she used all four limbs to cling onto Gong Coco. Gong Coco said naughtily. If you don't speak, I'll throw you down. I'll speak. I'll speak. The girl said anxiously. The person I like dumped me. He's going to marry someone else today. Gong Coco said righteously, then why don't you like someone else? Her words stunned the girl. Mother said that the thing that this world doesn't lack the most is people. If one person leaves, there will be countless people to replace him. The girl suddenly showed a sorrowful expression. Some people can't be replaced by anyone. Gong Coco thought for a moment. You mean, you still want to seek death? No, I won't die. The girl said hurriedly and finally said softly. I will learn to forget him. Chapter 885. When the girl said that, Gong Coco smiled proudly. Just then, the police arrived. They carefully pushed open the window and reached out to Gong Coco. There was even a young policeman who shouted, "Heroine! Let us help you." Gong Coco guided them to grab the girl's hand. Very quickly, the girl was successfully rescued. Just as the police were about to save Gong Coco, she suddenly loosened her grip on the banner and fell down quickly. The onlookers below once again burst into exclamations. Gong Coco actually landed very smoothly. Although she wasn't wearing a skirt, when she landed, she still gave people a feeling of floating. As soon as she landed, she ran towards a place with fewer people. When everyone reacted, they all chased after her. Only Meng Xiaoqing was still in a daze, somewhat unable to recover from his shock. When did Gong Coco become a martial arts expert? He hadn't been in a daze for long when Gong Coco had already removed the mask covering her face and appeared behind him. She patted his shoulder. "Hey! What are you in a daze for?" Her bell-like voice woke Meng Xiaoqing up from his dream. "You!" Meng Xiaoqing suddenly widened his eyes and looked at her. "Didn't you just? Didn't she run in that direction? How did she appear behind him?" Gong Coco saw that at this moment, he didn't have the slightest bit of his usual handsomeness. Instead, he looked a little silly. "This is not the place to talk. Let's go." With that, she pulled Meng Xiaoqing and ran. Along the way, Meng Xiaoqing's emotions were very complicated. Clearly, Gong Coco had suddenly shown an extraordinary side. He should have felt afraid, but for some reason, when he was pulled by her soft little hand, his mind went blank. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was that Gong Coco would not hurt him. The place where they were filming was a scenic park. Because the production crew was rich and had booked the entire scenic area, they were safe after entering. Meng Xiaoqing sat on a deck chair in the forest. He couldn't take it anymore. He had never run like this before. It was simply killing him. Gong Coco blushed and sat beside him without panting. She said curiously, "You're too weak. You're a man. What's wrong with men?" Meng Xiaoqing panted as he turned to glare at her. "Do you think that everyone is like you?" He paused for a moment and couldn't help but ask, "Oh right, what you used just now was Qigong. Does Qigong really exist in this world?" Gong Coco smiled, revealing two small canine teeth. "Of course. Don't you have Kung Fu?" The man by Jiang Shanka's side was obviously good at external martial arts. "You have Kung Fu." Meng Xiaoqing was also someone who had seen the world. Naturally, he knew that there were still many capable people in their country. But what you're doing, climbing several floors with your bare hands to save people, is too exaggerated. Fortunately, you covered your face. Otherwise, the whole world would know about you by tomorrow. Gong Coco felt a little guilty. She seemed to have accidentally done something out of line again, so she quickly put on a serious expression. "Then you must not tell anyone." Meng Xiaoqing frowned. "Why? You're so good. Why don't you let others know? You even acted bravely for a just cause. With a little publicity, you'll be famous." Gong Coco blinked and panicked. "Anyway, you're not allowed to tell anyone. Can you keep it a secret for me?" Meng Xiaoqing suddenly had an epiphany. It must be because Gong Coco's master was very mysterious. Naturally, he didn't like her to be so flamboyant, so he said it generously. "Okay, I won't tell anyone." Gong Coco's eyes lit up. She didn't expect Meng Xiaoqing to be so easy to talk to. She quickly put on a bright smile and showered him with nice words. "You're such a good person." "Thank you." When she smiled, she was so sweet. Especially when the warm sunlight shone on her face through the shade of the trees, her face seemed to glow. Meng Xiaoqing's heart suddenly skipped a few beats. He opened his eyes in shock and lay on the recliner in a daze. He was afraid that Gong Coco would see his embarrassment. Seeing this, Gong Coco also lay back, looking a little tired. She had the habit of taking afternoon naps. After eating and exercising a little, she was a little sleepy now. So even though the recliner was very uncomfortable, she still closed her eyes and mumbled. "Okay, let's take a rest now. I'm a little sleepy." After she finished speaking, her long eyelashes were completely lowered. She was taking a nap under the sun like a cat. The side of her face seemed to be magical. Meng Xiaoqing leaned closer to take a look and realized that there were no pores or traces of makeup on her face. No wonder the makeup artist kept saying that her skin was good in the morning. Her skin was fair and smooth. It made people want to take a bite. Meng Xiaoqing's Adam's apple bobbed and he suddenly said, Didn't your manager tell you not to get so much sun to maintain your skin tone?" Gong Coco didn't open her eyes and said lazily. "Don't worry, I won't get tanned." As she spoke, her voice became softer and softer. She was obviously very sleepy, but her brows were slightly furrowed. She seemed to be very uncomfortable sleeping on the back of the recliner. Meng Xiaoqing said in a curious manner. "Why don't you sleep on my lap?" He couldn't say what he was thinking. Yesterday, he still hated Gong Coco, but now, he felt that he wanted to be close to her. When the tired Gong Coco heard this, she didn't stand on ceremony. Her body tilted and fell on his lap. Her entire body curled up on the recliner and she looked even more like a cat. Meng Xiaoqing's hands hung in the air, afraid that he would be rude to her. However, her satin hair was really very eye-catching. When the sun shone on her hair, it had a watery luster. Meng Xiaoqing didn't move for a while. In the end, seeing that she was in a deep sleep, he carefully put his hand down and gently touched her hair. Gong Coco didn't react. She even unintentionally rubbed against his hand. In the past, she had also slept on her brother's back. Her brother would also touch her hair. This was a completely subconscious reaction. But Meng Xiaoqing was not her brother. Feeling the furry touch on his palm, as well as her response, Meng Xiaoqing suddenly felt that his heart was filled with something soft, and there was no longer any space for anyone else. He lowered his head and smiled sweetly. It felt really good to be liked by Gong Coco. But he didn't know that this scene was seen by someone in the dark. Shuawen looked at the two people not far in front of her with her eyes wide open. If it weren't for Gong Coco's phone call in the morning, she wouldn't have been running around and exhausted all morning. But in the end, she still couldn't get Lu Yun out. Lu Yun was mercilessly fired by the company. It seemed that all this was really the work of President Jiang. However, Gong Coco hooked up with President Jiang, and now she hooked up with Meng Xiaoqing. Meng Xiaoqing had some feelings for her before, but now he had an ambiguous relationship with Gong Coco. Was he trying to take advantage of her? Chapter 886. Thinking of this, Shuawen secretly took a photo and left. The scenes in the afternoon went very smoothly, especially her scene with Meng Xiaoqing. Gong Coco didn't know how to act. She was just acting as herself. She had plans to stop acting after this drama. She didn't study acting, and as a princess, she didn't have the desire to show her face in public and be watched by everyone. But in the last scene, Gong Coco ran into some trouble. This scene was after the princess returned to the palace. Coincidentally, there was a banquet in the palace and all the young ladies gathered. The female lead was being bullied by the princess she played. After the princess performed, she forced the female lead to perform as well, wanting to see the female lead make a fool of herself. In the end, the female lead's skills were naturally better, causing the entire hall to cheer. It was a slap to the princess's face. Gong Coco was speechless at this scene. When she was in Diu state, who dared to ask her to perform at banquets? Were they tired of living? However, she also knew that this was just acting. She couldn't take it too seriously. If she really took it seriously, although this was a period drama, it was completely incompatible with the era she was in. It was completely out of place. But here came the problem. Originally, the princess played the zither and the female lead danced. However, the zither double suddenly had something to do and couldn't come. The director thought about it and asked Gong Coco to do it personally. He wanted her to act like she was playing the zither and add in the sound in post-production. Gong Coco felt that it was more convenient for her to play a song instead of acting. Thus, she said, "No need, I know how to play the zither." Gong Coco knew how to play the zither. Many people who knew some inside information looked like they were waiting to watch a good show. Although Gong Coco was a member of the Gong family, she was the illegitimate daughter of the Gong family. She was raised in the countryside and was only brought back when she was 16. How could such a girl know how to play the zither? Gong Coco didn't care about those mocking gazes. Her thoughts were simple. If there was a zither in this world, then it wouldn't be out of line for her to play a song, right? After being stunned for a moment, the director also showed an expression of disbelief. However, since Gong Coco wanted to play, he would not disagree on her request for the sake of Jiang Shanka, so he braced himself and agreed. In his heart, he thought that since there was still post-production, there was no need to worry. Gong Coco sat down in front of the zither under everyone's complicated gazes. As a princess, the head of the noble young ladies, other than studying, she usually learned various skills. She had always regarded her mother as a role model. How could someone like her be mediocre? Although there was no incense and the zither was not a good zither, Gong Coco endured it and attached her inner force to her fingertips to prevent the zither strings from hurting her hands. As soon as the director shouted to start shooting, she thought for a while and played a very famous song in Diu state, Glory and Splendor. This song was divided into 3 parts and time was limited, so she played the most important part of it. Her slender jade-like fingers were attached to the strings of the zither, raising the ordinary zither to a higher level. She seemed to have a magical power. Once she entered the state, it was as if she had become a real noble young lady. Everyone's eyes fell on Gong Coco. At this moment, she was wearing a gorgeous princess dress and sitting in front of the zither. The noble aura that she inadvertently exuded made people unable to take their eyes off her. In the short span of a day, they all felt that Gong Kiki had become much prettier and had an outstanding temperament. Just like now, she was just sitting there and posing, but she already gave off the feeling of a big family. It was no wonder that she was able to seduce President Jiang. However, the moment the first note came out, everyone was stunned. They did not know why, but they felt that their minds were empty. This was because Gong Coco had accumulated inner force in her hands, so the notes she played were fuller and more distant. It could make people feel refreshed. The next gorgeous movement came out coldly. Everyone could not help but hold their breaths, as if they did not want to disturb her. The gorgeous palace instantly became the background. It was as if only the sound of the princess playing the zither could be heard. Meng Xiaoqing was originally reading the script, but when he heard the sound, he could not help but look over. At that moment, he held his breath and focused. It was as if he had seen the real princess. His heart was beating faster and faster. Meng Xiaoqing suddenly blushed. He thought that he seemed to like Gong Coco a little, time was limited. The short 5 minutes of music ended, but the people on the set were still in a daze. When they came back to their senses, their first reaction was to applaud. They had completely forgotten that they were still filming. The director was stunned. He did not expect Gong Coco to really know how to play the zither. Moreover, a few minutes of music was so captivating. Most importantly, he could tell that the song was an original. He had never heard it before. He shouted excitedly, "Did you record it just now?" "Just use the original. She played it so well." He could not help but ask Coco, "Coco, what song did you play just now?" "I don't think I've heard it before." Gong Coco simply said, "This song is called Fu of Glory and Splendor." The director was delighted. It was indeed a song that had not appeared in the modern world. Moreover, the style of the song was very suitable for the palace. That kind of graceful and luxurious atmosphere was something that the impetuous modern music industry could not create. Thinking of this, his face was full of smiles. He asked eagerly, then, "Coco, can I use this song as the ending song for our drama?" Gong Coco saw that some people liked their song. She smiled faintly, giving off a proud and likable feeling. Of course. However, at this moment, a shattering sound was heard. It turned out that Xue Wen had accidentally smashed a cup. Xue Wen was a dancer. Basically, she had to show off her dancing skills when filming dramas. However, if she really put Gong Coco's zither song in front of everyone, who would watch her dance? How would she be able to achieve the effect of full applause? Xue Wen's anger woke the director up from his dream. He revealed a troubled expression and suddenly did not know what to do. Firstly, he really could not bear to part with Gong Coco's song. Secondly, for the sake of the plot, he really could not let Gong Coco steal Xue Wen's limelight. At this moment, an assistant beside Xue Wen smiled and said, "I didn't expect Coco to play the zither so well. If this is broadcasted, people won't be able to see our Wen." Gong Coco asked curiously, "Is it wrong for me to play it well? Then let's do it again. I missed it by a bit." No, that's not what I meant." The assistant revealed a shrewd smile. The scenes can be changed. For example, the female lead and second female lead will both play the zither. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble Coco to be Wen-Wen's substitute. Let's play the song just now. This way, the second female lead will play the zither first. If she misses it by a bit, the female lead will present this song. Wouldn't this be more comparable and highlight the female lead more? Gong Coco blinked and did not say anything. Although Xue Wen did not say anything, her expression showed that she agreed. The director was a little conflicted. Let the second female lead be the female lead substitute. Then, in order to highlight the female lead's strength, the second female lead played the zither herself. Wasn't this bullying? Chapter 887. Moreover, it was such a good song. No one would agree to it if it was given to someone else just like that, right? If the second female lead was an ordinary person, it would be fine. She would just treat it as a loan and use it to clear her name during the ending song. However, Gong Coco was recommended by President Jiang. Seeing that the director was silent and seemed to be tempted and hesitant, Xue Wen's assistant went straight to Gong Coco. "Kiki, for the sake of the film's effect, I'll have to make you suffer." Gong Coco looked at the woman who was smiling amiably and raised her eyebrows slightly. "Make me suffer? No way. She was a princess. How could she suffer for no reason?" Everyone present had different expressions. The assistant's smile froze on her face. She said threateningly, "Kiki, we're all in the same production team. You don't have to be so petty just to borrow a song from you, right? just to borrow a song. Everyone looked at her with disdain. Although they were not in the music industry, they knew that the value of this song was not small. If they really did as she said, after the drama aired, this song would probably become Shui Wen's. She was clearly snatching it. Although Gong Coco did not care about a song, she was not someone who was willing to be taken advantage of. She sat there and said without hesitation, "Since she thinks that I play well, she can just dance better and suppress me. In the end, she wants me to use my own song to defeat myself just because she can't beat me? That's too shameless. I'd rather play poorly than be disgusted by someone like that." Her rude words made the scene very awkward. It was impossible for the director to give up a good song, and Shui Wen was even more unwilling to be suppressed. At this moment, Lu Lan, who had been keeping a low profile the whole day, suddenly ran out and said, "I've been feeling unwell the whole day. I was just resting when I heard this commotion. I was wondering what was going on. So it's about this." Lu Lan smiled and walked to Gong Coco's side. "Kiki, you're really too much. Aren't you the most generous? Just lend the song to Wen Wen and be her stunt double. If this goes on, the recording will be delayed." Gong Kiki glanced at Yu Tian's angry face and suddenly understood. She hadn't figured it out from the start. Lu Lan liked her husband and wanted to snatch the second female lead from her. Why would she drink Lu Lan's drink and end up in the lake? But now, he understood. The only explanation was that the original Gong Kiki didn't like Jiang Shanke. That was why she didn't have any hostility towards Lu Lan. In fact, their relationship was quite good. However, the reason was unknown. However, Gong Coco now knew that Lu Lan had an ulterior motive for approaching her. Not only did she want to steal Jiang Shanke, but she also wanted her life. How could she let Lu Lan get close to her? "You're really generous." Gong Coco saw that she had been avoiding her all day and knew that she must be up to no good. So she said, "I haven't settled the score with you yet. I drank the drink you gave me yesterday and almost couldn't get up. You want justice? Explain this matter to me first." Gong Kiki's words shocked everyone. There was such a thing. Lu Lan's face turned pale. She saw that Gong Coco didn't come to her all day, so she thought that yesterday's incident was over. She didn't expect that Gong Coco would say it out loud. "What nonsense are you talking about? I didn't give you any drink." Gong Coco raised her eyebrows and pointed at the assistant next to her. "You didn't. Yesterday, I heard her whispering to the man who was hanging from the wire. She even gave the man a card, but something happened to the wire. How are you going to explain this? I'm afraid that you wanted to harm me, but you harmed the wrong person." Gong Coco's words stunned the director. Then, he said seriously, "Kiki, is what you said true? You really saw it?" Last night, when he sent the man to the Public Security Bureau, the man didn't say anything. He only said that he was obsessed. It turned out that he had taken money. Gong Coco nodded and said without blushing, "I wasn't sure at first. Later, when I saw that something was wrong with the wire, I connected the two." Everyone had different expressions. This was not a small problem. If a crew was involved in such a dirty trick, it would have a bad influence. Lu Lan's face turned pale. She quickly said, "It wasn't me. I didn't." "Gong Coco, do you think you can slander me with only one side of the story? Where's the evidence?" Gong Coco looked at her and told her firmly, "The evidence will be here soon." Because Jiang Shanke told her that he would deal with yesterday's incident. Therefore, Gong Coco looked at Lu Lan with pity. "You'll know what will happen to you tonight." Her tough words were like a death sentence for Lu Lan. If something really happened to Lu Lan that night, it would definitely be President Zhang's doing. They didn't know how important Gong Coco was in President Zhang's heart. Since he was willing to go to such lengths for her, they weren't just ordinary lovers, right? Everyone's impression of Gong Coco improved. When Gong Coco saw that her unintentional action had actually caused others to be afraid, she, who had long mastered the art of intimidating others, smiled at Xue Wen and asked in an extremely arrogant manner, "Do you still want me to be your stunt double?" As an A-list actress, Xue Wen's career had been smooth sailing. When had she ever been bullied like this? However, she knew that her sugar daddy was definitely no match for Jiang Shanke. So, in a fit of anger, she ran away without saying anything. The assistant beside her was a little scared. Especially when Gong Coco looked at her, her legs trembled. She quickly put on a fawning smile. "Coco, don't be angry. We were just joking." Gong Coco then said to the director, "Director, you can decide if you want me to perform this song or play it a little worse. But being a stunt double is too much of a bully. I won't do it." At this moment, the director nodded with an ugly expression. Xue Wen ran away and he still had to clean up the mess. Lu Lan was no longer smiling. She was filled with fear. Would something really happen to her tonight? No way. President Jiang didn't have a good relationship with Gong Coco. He wouldn't go to such lengths for her. Besides, she did it so secretly that no one could find out. Gong Coco must be exaggerating. Moreover, she had the Gong family behind her. Even if Jiang Shanke wanted to save her face, he couldn't disregard the Buddha, right? After messing around for a while, Gong Coco didn't care about Meng Xiaoqing's hesitant gaze and returned to the Jiang family. It was so tiring to be an actress. She really had a fulfilling day today. When she returned, she saw that Jiang Shanke was also back. He was sitting in the living room with a strange expression. When he saw her, he waved at her. Gong Coco walked over curiously and saw Jiang Shanke pointing at the newspaper on the coffee table. "Tell me." His voice was indescribably relaxed. "Why did you fly into the air to save someone when you were filming?" Gong Coco looked down. Mysterious heroine saved in a thrilling manner. Was it Qinggong or superpower? Gong Coco was embarrassed. But this wasn't the end. Jiang Shanke took out his phone and opened a photo. It was the photo of her sleeping on Meng Xiaoqing's body in the afternoon. Jiang Shanke asked with a faint smile, "And this, explain it." Chapter 888. Inexplicably, Gong Coco felt guilty. Strange, why did she feel guilty? Why did she feel like she had done something wrong, and her brother was punishing her? Nothing to say. Jiang Shanke asked with a faint smile. His attitude and tone were clearly very gentle, but why did she feel even more nervous? Gong Coco stood in front of Jiang Shanke and lowered her head, feeling wronged. Sorry. I didn't know there was no Qinggong here. To be honest, this was also out of Jiang Shanke's expectations. He thought that Gong Coco only practiced external martial arts, just like the bodyguards beside him. He didn't expect her to know Qinggong as well. Sure enough, she didn't learn anything in the morning. Once she went out, she caused trouble for herself. Jiang Shanke's fingers lightly tapped on the sofa's armrest as he looked at her with a smile. Although his eyes were smiling, it didn't reach the bottom of his eyes, making people feel afraid. What else? Also, Gong Coco bit her lips. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. I shouldn't have slept on Meng Xiaoqing's lap, so you still know that men and women shouldn't touch each other. Jiang Shanke said ambiguously. Gong Coco felt even more wronged and was very unhappy. Since she was young, she never learned female discipline. Although she heard people say that men and women shouldn't touch each other, she almost never left the palace. Other than reading, she would stay in her small workshop. It could be said that she didn't leave the house at all. The only brother she had an intimate relationship with was also a man, so she gradually didn't put this sentence in her heart. Mother said that men and women were the same, so she didn't feel any difference between her and her brother. Now that she was in this damned place, she was restricted everywhere. Even her brother didn't care, but this person wanted to care about her. Humph, she didn't want to listen to him. Gong Coco's dissatisfaction was written all over her face. Jiang Shanke sighed in his heart. She was an ancient noble lady. Her noble temperament was indeed nurtured by an ancient noble family. But as an ancient girl, shouldn't she have learned the 3 obediences and 4 virtues from a young age? Why was she so bold and fearless? He still needed to know more about it. Come here. He reached out to Gong Coco. Gong Coco turned her head to the side. Although she felt that he was as dignified as her brother, she didn't want to listen to him. She snorted. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. If you have something to say, just say it. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows. This little girl actually used the words that he lectured her to block him. His temper was not small. It's different. Have you forgotten? Last night, we already had intimate contact. In your world, intimate contact means that you're husband and wife, right? Therefore, I am not an outsider. You can get close to me. Speaking of this matter, Gong Coco was embarrassed. In the past, when she couldn't sleep at night, she would ask the head palace maid to sleep with her. She was used to it. But according to what he said, she had to take responsibility for what happened last night. Besides, they were just a contractual couple. Since he wanted to tell her that there was a difference between men and women, why couldn't she treat him as an outsider? What happened last night was an accident. I won't hold it against you. We're not really husband and wife, so I don't want to get close to you. When she said this, Jiang Shanke was a little displeased. This little girl had just arrived yesterday. She was easier to deceive and cuter when she was in a panic. Once she got used to it, she would be like a cat with its claws raised. It was hard for people to get close to her. Jiang Shanke said unconcernedly, originally, I wanted to tell you about your current identity and the things that you need to pay attention to. Since you don't want to come, then forget it. When Gong Coco heard this, her expression instantly became conflicted. She now had a troublesome face, so naturally, she wanted to get rid of the trouble. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. She really wanted to understand what kind of situation Gong Coco was in this world. But she absolutely couldn't go to him and admit defeat. The little princess raised her little chin proudly and said loudly, according to the contract, you have the obligation to tell me these things. Don't you dare use this to threaten me. Jiang Shanke said unhurriedly, according to the contract, during the contract, you have to be a good wife. But you won't even come close to me. Jiang Shanke sneered, then why should I help you? You. Gong Coco was conflicted. Why did she feel that what he said made sense? Forget it. She had no choice but to lower her head when she was under someone else's roof. She would tolerate him for a few more days. He was the only person in this world who knew about her identity and secret. Other than him, there seemed to be no one else she could trust. So Gong Coco walked unwillingly to Jiang Shanke's side and said with dissatisfaction, all right, I'm coming over. Hurry up and tell me. Jiang Shanke sat and raised his head to look at the little fellow who was just inches away from him. At this moment, her cheeks were slightly puffed up, and her fair face had turned pink because of her anger. Such delicate skin really made people want to take a bite. Come, sit in my arms. Jiang Shanke coaxed her in a low voice. Gong Coco asked gloomily, is this what a good wife should do? She suddenly had an epiphany and asked cautiously, we are only a contractual couple. You won't want me to give you a child, right? Jiang Shanka suddenly laughed. It was different from a sneer and a sneer. He was really happy. Why was this little girl so cute? He narrowed his eyes and thought for a moment. In a low voice, he said, don't worry. I don't want a child now. But if she did, he wouldn't mind giving birth to it. Gong Coco was relieved. Just as she was conflicted about whether she should listen to him or continue arguing, Jiang Shanka suddenly reached out and pulled her into a hug. With a warm and fragrant jade in his arms, Jiang Shanka even felt that Gong Coco's body had a sweet milky fragrance. Their eyes met. Gong Coco's eyes widened. Jiang Shanka seemed to be pleased by her expression. He lovingly pinched her nose. Do you want to hear it? If you want to hear it, then don't resist. Remember, during the contract, we are husband and wife. Husband and wife, Gong Coco frowned. For the first time, Gong Coco, who had always had a vague concept of this word, had a question. What exactly was husband and wife? On the other side, Jiang Shanka, who had hugged Gong Coco, was in a good mood. His attitude softened and he gently told her. Husband and wife are husband and wife. Whether it is a contract or not, at least within the contract, our relationship is real, just like your parents. So, from now on, you have to keep a distance from men, because you have me. Just like my parents. Gong Coco thought of her parents, and her expression was filled with longing. He said it simply, but Gong Coco believed that in this world, there wouldn't be a good man like her father. Her parents had gone through so many trials and tribulations before they were together. It wasn't something that could be imitated by a marriage contract. In the end, Gong Coco didn't argue with him. She nodded because Meng Xiaoqing was just an ordinary friend to her. This afternoon, he was willing to keep her secret, which made her feel that this person was quite easy to get along with. But that was it. Chapter 889. Seeing that Gong Coco was obedient, Jiang Shanka was in a better mood. He took out his phone and clicked on a document sent to him by his assistant. Your current identity is Gong Coco, the daughter of the Gong family in Hayden City. As Jiang Shanka said this, a picture of a girl who looked very similar to the current Gong Coco appeared on his phone, followed by her life story. However, the girl's skin was darker, and she was thinner. Her eyes were gloomy. Although she was quite pretty, she was much worse than the current Gong Coco. Gong Coco looked curiously at the girl who looked very similar to her. Jiang Shanka said that her body was not found, so did that mean that she was still alive? Jiang Shanka continued. The Gong family is one of the most influential families in Hayden City. She was the eldest daughter of the Gong family, but her father divorced her mother and remarried, so she grew up in the countryside with her mother. She knew about her background when she was very young, so she was mentally unbalanced when she was young, which led to her being lonely and gloomy. Later, her mother died, and she was brought back. The main reason was that the only young master of the Gong family had leukemia, and her bone marrow was a good match. She saved young Master Gong's life, but her life in the Gong family was very miserable. Later, her stepmother wanted to marry her to a 60-year-old man, so she took the token her mother gave her before she died and came to the Jiang family. At that time, my mother had a headache, but there was no one around. Her mother, who was sweeping the floor, sent my mother to the hospital. Because of the timely rescue, my mother was fine. My mother gave her a token so that she could come to the Jiang family for help if she was in trouble. At this point, Jiang Shanka frowned. Later, because the Gong family wanted to force her to marry someone, in order to solve this problem once and for all and dispel the Gong family's scheme, my mother begged me to marry her directly. However, in the end, we only held a banquet and did not register the marriage, so it was not a real marriage. So you are a fake couple. Gong Coco touched her chin and suddenly thought of someone. She hesitated and asked, is it because she likes Meng Xiaoqing? Is that why she rejected you? Jiang Shanke didn't expect Gong Coco to know about this. I heard that she fell in love with Meng Xiaoqing because he helped her when she was a trainee in the company after she was spotted by a talent scout. However, she wasn't the reason we faked our marriage. Jiang Shanke sneered. How could his marriage be manipulated by a little girl? We have a private agreement. On account of her kindness, I can help her get close to Meng Xiaoqing. I can even help her gain a foothold in the entertainment industry. When we divorce in the future, she won't be manipulated by the Gong family anymore. What about her? Gong Coco asked curiously. What does she want to repay you for helping her like this? Her. As long as she didn't appear in front of him, that was enough. But in order to make the little girl not afraid of him, he would not say it out loud. Of course. I will help her unconditionally. Actually, the original Gong Coco did like Meng Xiaoqing. She came to the Jiang family because she was at her wit's end. She only wanted to ask for help. However, after seeing Jiang Shanke, she changed her mind. Otherwise, there were many ways to help her. Jiang Shanke's mother wouldn't force him to marry her. However, how could Jiang Shanke be manipulated by a woman? Although he didn't know why his mother liked her so much, he didn't like her. That was why they faked their marriage. He could help her settle the Gong family, give her resources to let her have a smooth career in the entertainment industry, and even help her chase after Meng Xiaoqing. However, she couldn't have any ideas about him. This marriage had no legal effect. Moreover, it was a secret marriage and could be dissolved at any time. Gong Coco asked gloomily, so you mean that if I don't want to be your wife, the Gong family might treat me as her and deal with me? However, when she thought about it, it didn't make sense. She was already married. Could it be that they wouldn't let her off after the divorce? As if reading Gong Coco's thoughts, Jiang Shanke explained, when she found out that she was going to marry an old man in his 60s, it was the miss of the Gong family who told her. At that time, the two of them got into an argument. In her anger, she used a broken piece of porcelain to cut the miss of the Gong family's face. She was disfigured. Gong Coco hissed. She could imagine how much the miss of the Gong family hated her. No wonder Jiang Shanke said that she had many enemies. Gong Coco's face fell. So, I'm tied to you for the rest of my life. No, she had to work hard. If she was more powerful than the Gong family in this world, the Gong family naturally wouldn't be able to hurt her. Jiang Shanke stroked her hair. I've already found evidence about Lu Lan. The police should be at her house by now. The reason why she and your manager are targeting you is because of the Gong family. Now that you're still my wife, they think that our relationship isn't good. Although they don't dare to do it openly, they've started to do it secretly. You have to be careful. Gong Coco quickly caught the main point. So you're saying, you're more powerful than the Gong family? Gong Coco's eyes sparkled as she looked at Jiang Shanke with anticipation. This silly girl. No man could bear to disappoint her when she looked at him with such anticipation. Fortunately, Jiang Shanke was indeed more powerful than the Gong family. Jiang Shanke smiled and nodded. Probably a little more powerful. He deliberately narrowed the gap between the two families to make Gong Coco feel threatened. Then, if they find out that you and I have a good relationship, will they not dare to do anything to me? Jiang Shanke laughed secretly and nodded. What you said is very possible. That's why I said that I want you to be a good wife. This is also a request made to protect you. Gong Coco suddenly felt that this person was good. He actually helped her, for free. However, Gong Coco suddenly remembered that this man was evil towards her last night. She frowned and said suspiciously, "Are you really as good as you say? If you're good to me, why did you lie to me last night?" He even said that he often helped his wife bathe and that he had a good relationship with his wife. So it was a fake marriage. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows and said seriously, "I was just suspicious of your background, so I did it to test you." Gong Coco thought about it and felt that what he said made sense. In that case, her luck was not bad. She met a good person who helped her unconditionally. She was a little suspicious. Mother said that there's no free lunch in the world. I'm your wife. In the end, I'm still taking advantage of you. How about this? Tell me, what else can I do? I can't always take advantage of you, right? Jiang Shanke suddenly moved closer and sniffed her hair before speaking in a hoarse voice. I have insomnia, but I feel very at ease hugging you. If you really want to repay me, let me hug you to sleep in the future. Chapter 890. Gong Coco wanted to agree, but she was hugged to sleep by him. When she was young, she had been hugged to sleep by her father, and she had also been hugged to sleep by her mother, but she was hugged to sleep by Jiang Shanke every day. She hesitated. Even if it was the head palace maid, it was only because she wanted the palace maid's sister to accompany her that she could get on the bed. Why was she so passive here? Jiang Shanke saw her long eyelashes trembling non-stop, as if she was struggling. He said softly, "You just said that I can make any request." Gong Coco blushed. The first princess kept her word. Wasn't it just sleeping with him? All right, I'll promise you. But you're not allowed to lie to me again. You have to seriously teach me about this world. If I find out that you lied to me again, I'm not easy to bully. Gong Coco glared at him fiercely. Jiang Shanke chuckled, nodded, and hugged her even tighter. What should he do? She was really cute. He also liked the soft and bouncy feeling of her body, as well as the faint milky fragrance. However, hugging her through her clothes was not as comfortable as hugging her naked body last night. Her body was like the best silk. Thinking of this, Jiang Shanke actually felt that he couldn't hold himself back. However, Gong Coco's senses were extremely sharp, and she frowned. There's something hard on your body, it's hurting me. Then she suddenly thought of something terrible, and her body bounced up. But she was quickly held down by Jiang Shanke. He obviously thought of the same thing as Gong Coco. Seeing that she was in such a hurry to escape, he couldn't help but ask in a somewhat angry tone. Where do you want to escape to? Gong Coco smiled embarrassedly, and moved her but a little further away. This person had a lump on his body, and it was so big. He must feel inferior in his heart, so it was better for her not to provoke him. Jiang Shanke narrowed his eyes. He was speechless at her lack of common sense. He asked dangerously. Do you know the difference between a man and a woman? Gong Coco was frightened by his gaze, and replied vigilantly. I know, then tell me, what's the difference between men and women? Jiang Shanke was almost angered to death by this little thing. She actually thought that he had something that shouldn't be there. Gong Coco counted with her fingers. Men have Adam's apple, but women don't. Women have breasts, but men don't. And there's more. Their eyes met. Gong Coco was confused. Jiang Shanke took a deep breath. He didn't expect that one day, he would have to teach others basic physiological knowledge. When you were young, you never asked where you came from. Gong Coco nodded again and said with a blank face, I did. Mother said that she and father obtained me from practicing martial arts. What kind of martial arts? Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows. Gong Coco replied loudly, dual cultivation. Even though he knew that he shouldn't, Jiang Shanke couldn't help but smile. He held back and asked seriously. Then do you know how to dual cultivate? Gong Coco said gloomily, Mother didn't have time to teach me before she left with father. Her expression also became lonely. Jiang Shanke thought that Gong Coco's mother was dead, and he accidentally poked at her sore spot. Looking at her sad expression, his heart softened. He thought, forget it. There's still a long way to go. Anyway, the little girl is mine. He didn't need to be so anxious. Next time, he would find some videos for her to watch. Ahem. After coaxing Gong Coco for a while, Gong Coco's mood improved. Her impression of Jiang Shanke increased a little. She felt that he would coax her when she was unhappy. He was a very good person. So he comforted her. Don't be sad. God is fair. You're so rich and so good-looking. Even if you have a hidden disease, it doesn't matter. Anyway, no one can see it when you wear clothes. Gong Coco's caring words made Jiang Shanke's face darken again. He had changed his mind. He was determined to let this little lass gain some knowledge and let her know that the thing that men hated the most was the word hidden illness. However, Gong Coco smacked her lips and interrupted his anger. Jiang Shanke, I'm hungry. Let's go for dinner, okay? Being looked at with such expectation, which man could refuse? The anger in Jiang Shanke's heart suddenly disappeared. What else could he do with such a living treasure? He could only spoil her. He sighed. He felt that he had sighed more in the past 2 days than he had in the past 20 years. But he decided to ask for a little benefit. Kiss me, and I'll take you there. Gong Coco blinked and looked at him in confusion. When she was young, she often kissed her father, mother, and brother. But when she grew up, she didn't like family anymore. Because she had grown up, she shouldn't be clingy. Why was Jiang Shanke still so childish? However, she didn't hesitate for long. She kissed Jiang Shanke's face. When her soft lips suddenly pressed against Jiang Shanke's face, Jiang Shanke suddenly felt his heart beating faster. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Gong Coco. They were so close that Gong Coco could completely feel his scorching hot breath. She was stunned by his stare. Is it not enough? She frowned, but still very obediently kissed Jiang Shanke on the other side of his face. She moved closer once again, letting Jiang Shanke clearly feel the comfort of being wrapped in something soft. His heart beat faster again, and his breathing became hurried. This was a throbbing that he had not felt in the past 20 years. This girl. No wonder he wanted her the moment he saw her. Gong Coco kissed him and moved away. But she was in Jiang Shanke's arms. Jiang Shanke suddenly lifted her up and lowered his head to kiss her delicate little mouth. Gong Coco's eyes widened. For the first time, she forgot to react. But her hands on Jiang Shanke's sleeves suddenly tightened. She was obviously at a loss. Jiang Shanke didn't stop after kissing her. Instead, he carefully traced her lips. That kind of ambiguity, from their intertwined breaths, gradually heated up. Gong Coco's hands tightened. Her mind went blank, and she completely forgot to breathe. It was Jiang Shanke's first time kissing a woman, but he was definitely self-taught. How could her sweetness be enough? He directly penetrated it domineeringly. Gong Coco was completely stunned at this moment. Her teeth were easily pried open by him. She was like a pitiful little girl who was being bullied by a man. This kind of obedience undoubtedly increased the man's desire. Feeling that Jiang Shanke was putting something into her mouth, Gong Coco was shocked and instinctively wanted to push him away. But, her body suddenly gave birth to a strange desire, and it gradually heated up. This unfamiliar feeling made her hesitate, and it was also this hesitation that made her lose the chance to push him away. Instead, he hugged her even tighter. Just like a domineering king, he wantonly invaded her territory and stole her breath. Chapter 891. For the first time in her life, Gong Coco understood that kissing and kissing were different. Kissing was very intimate, but kissing would make a person's mind blank and unable to think. Their body would go soft and they would become very strange. This was the first time in her 18 years of being a virgin that she had experienced this difference. Moreover, it didn't seem so annoying. She couldn't help but lick the other party's soft lips. Gong Coco's initiative was no different from a catalyst for Jiang Shanke. He stopped and looked at her. His dark eyes became even deeper, as if he was about to go berserk. Gong Coco was startled and quickly broke free from this strange feeling. Before Jiang Shanke could kiss her again, she jumped out of Jiang Shanke's embrace like a rabbit. Jiang Shanke's eyes flashed with a trace of annoyance. The fact that his little cutie knew martial arts was what he was most dissatisfied with. Gong Coco's face was already as red as a peach. She didn't know why she was blushing. Before, when she saw Jiang Shanke, she was very normal, just like when she saw her brothers, eunuchs, and palace maids. But after being kissed by him, Gong Coco suddenly didn't dare to look at him. When she was young, she had also seen her mother and father kiss. She had always been very curious about what was so good about the mouth. So whether the mouth was good or not wasn't the main point. The main point was that people would become dizzy. It was really amazing. She wanted to do it again. After this thought popped up in Gong Coco's mind, she felt shy for the first time in her life. She felt that she shouldn't think like that. It was too embarrassing. She then lowered her head even more. Jiang Shanke was originally a bit angry, but when he saw that this little lass's face was actually red, his heart became much happier. As expected, he still had his charm. It wasn't that there was a problem with him, it was just that this little lass was too slow. He was afraid that he would scare this little thing if he was too aggressive, so he suppressed the thoughts in his heart. He walked over and held her hand as he gently said, "Let's go and eat." Gong Kiki quietly nodded and allowed him to hold her hand as they walked. During this time, she secretly sized up his hand and discovered that his hand was big and her hand was small. When they clasped their hands together, there was an indescribable sense of harmony. Just as she was in a daze, they arrived at the restaurant. Although there were only 2 people eating, there were 36 dishes on the table. There were 5 main dishes, but the portion of each dish was very small. The plates were heated automatically, so when the lid was removed, the color and aroma of the dishes were at their best. Gong Coco's eyes lit up. She felt extremely happy. When she was on set, Jiang Shanke's assistant, who was sent to secretly protect her, would send her food. It was delicious, but it was not as amazing as this table full of food. Although the food in Dayu State was also very delicious, and the food provided to the imperial palace was all of the best quality, it was no match for the modern people who had so many condiments. On top of that, Jiang Shanke was rich. He was good at everything he ate and used, so Gong Coco felt that eating every day was the happiest time of her life. Jiang Shanke was afraid that she would not be used to using knives and forks, so he separated all the dishes that required knives and forks and placed them on Gong Coco's plate. When Gong Coco saw dishes that she had never seen before, she insisted on asking. Fortunately, Jiang Shanke was knowledgeable and could answer all her questions. In the end, he waited for her to finish eating before he started eating. The housekeeper watched from the side. His expression did not change, but his heart was already in turmoil. It seemed that the young master was really sincere this time. He had never seen the young master so patient. Gong Coco also felt a little embarrassed. As a princess, she used to eat and use the best food. Even if she saw something that she had never seen before, she could still remain calm. Perhaps because she had let down her guard around Jiang Shanke, she did not have to hide anything in front of him. She could ask whatever she wanted. After dinner, Jiang Shanke took her to the flower bed in the Jiang residence for a walk. Even he felt that he had changed. In the past, no matter how good the flowers were at home, he would not take a look at them. But today, when he saw Gong Coco accidentally eat too much and looked very upset, he suddenly remembered that there was a garden at home that they could take a walk in. So he wanted to take her to see it. At this time, the sky was already dark. The gentle lights in the garden lit up the flowers as if they were sleeping. As the two of them walked in the garden, it was as if they had mistakenly entered a quiet and peaceful kingdom. There were not as many servants here as there were in the Jiang residence. It was just the two of them. Gong Coco's heart skipped a beat. She did not know why, but she was reminded of the kiss from before. When she rinsed her mouth after eating, she saw that her lips were a little swollen. Thinking of this, her face became redder and her heart beat faster. What's wrong? Under the night sky, Jiang Shanke's voice was like a cello. It was obviously elegant and deep, but there was a hint of seduction in it. Gong Coco did not dare to look at his handsome face under the light. Her eyes drifted and looked elsewhere. I was just thinking about who you are and what your status is. You're so rich at such a young age. There shouldn't be many people like you in this world, right? Gong Coco had a sudden inspiration and found an excuse. Jiang Shanke reached out and hooked a strand of her hair with his fingers as he spoke flirtatiously. My status is just a little higher than your enemies. My money is just enough to raise you until you're fair and tender. What about you? What's your status? Am I good enough for you? Gong Coco's cheeks were burning. The word good enough was no longer just a weak adjective in her mind. She finally had the wrong idea and thought of something that made her blush and her heart beat faster. I am the princess of Daiyu State. Daiyu State. Jiang Shanke repeated. He was sure that there was no such country in his historical knowledge. So, the girl in front of him was an ancient princess from another time. Well, only a princess could be so delicate and have such an outstanding temperament. However, he had to tell her, we don't have a Daiyu state here. As expected, he saw Gong Coco's dispirited expression. Jiang Shanke smiled and reached out to lift her chin. He told her solemnly, but I will still spoil you like a princess. Do you understand? Gong Coco was forced to look into his eyes and subconsciously held her breath. The sparkling lights seemed to have drilled into his eyes. They were so dazzling and mesmerizing that it made people sigh. Amidst her throbbing heart, Gong Kiki blinked and asked softly. I'm still a princess. Yes. Jiang Shanke did not hesitate at all. He definitely had the ability to let her continue to live like a princess. Gong Coco grabbed her sleeves a little nervously, but she raised her head proudly. In my place, the princess's orders must be obeyed, and no one is allowed to have any objections. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows slightly, then held her hand and said seriously. I'll listen to the princess's orders. Gong Coco's lips curled up slightly, and she ordered arrogantly and stiffly. I want you to kiss me again. Just like before, can you make me feel? Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Shanke hugged her waist and pulled her into his embrace. His thin lips impatiently pressed against hers, and he sucked on her sweetness forcefully. Chapter 892. Gong Coco's eyes widened. Once again, she felt that. Her mind went blank, and she felt like she was floating. The surrounding flowers shyly closed, and little star lanterns surrounded the two of them. Jiang Shanka felt that his heart was beating faster and faster, and he was a little confused. Before, he was only curious about Gong Coco, but in just a day, he found that he had already fallen in love with this girl. She could make his heart beat faster, and she could make him damn obsessed. Gong Coco felt like she was going to die from lack of oxygen. She pushed Jiang Shanka away, and gasped for breath. Her eyes were misty, and her lips were red and swollen, as if she had been badly bullied. "Princess, are you satisfied?" Jiang Shanka calmed his breath, and teased her until Gong Coco's face turned red. Then he hugged her and said softly, "Do you like it when I hug you?" His embrace was very safe. It was hard, but also warm. Gong Coco was not a person who did not dare to face her true feelings, so she nodded honestly. Jiang Shanka smiled happily. He liked her honesty. "Do you like it when I kiss you?" Gong Coco quietly grabbed Jiang Shanka's sleeves, and her whole body tensed up. But in the end, she nodded slightly. Jiang Shanka happily lowered his head to kiss her hair, and his eyes seemed to be filled with a gentle light. "Don't be shy. In our world, like and love have to be said. We don't like to hide it in our hearts. You like my kiss, and that means you like me. Coincidentally, I also like you very much." Gong Coco's face instantly turned hot. She burrowed into Jiang Shanka's arms. Like and what, it made her heart flutter. What to do, what to do? She was a princess. How could she be eaten up by a man? And she still had to think of a way to go back. At the thought of this, Gong Coco's originally muddled consciousness suddenly sobered up. She opened her mouth to ask, but instinctively felt that now was not the right time. If Jiang Shanka knew that Gong Coco was thinking about how to leave him at such a warm moment, he would definitely strangle her to death. Anyone who had fallen into his hands could forget about leaving. When the two of them returned, it was already past 9 at night. Gong Coco's biological clock began to protest. She wanted to sleep. Jiang Shanka took her to take a bath. Gong Coco originally wanted to do it herself, but Jiang Shanka refused. "Now that we are husband and wife, you don't have to be shy." Gong Coco was used to being served, so she didn't force it. Once again, she was taken advantage of by Jiang Shanka. Her innocent look made Jiang Shanka happy and worried at the same time. In the end, he told her worriedly, "We are husband and wife now, so in the future, other than me, you can't let any other man touch you, not even a woman." Gong Coco was puzzled. Why can't a woman? Jiang Shanka's fingertips lightly brushed against her delicate skin as he announced in a hoarse voice. "Because we are husband and wife. Everything you have is mine. Only I can touch you." His words were too seductive. Gong Coco, who had just been enlightened, became very shy easily. Hearing this, her entire body turned a light pink. In the water, it was indescribably moving. Jiang Shanka felt that he couldn't hold it in anymore. He had waited for so many years and finally met someone he liked. Why should he hold it in? So he said, "I'm done bathing. Get up. Let's go to the bed to apply some skincare products, okay?" Gong Coco nodded and stood up. All the water droplets fell off instantly. Jiang Shanka stood there with a towel. After seeing her get up, there was not a single drop of water on her body. Only then did he understand that the ancient book said that the skin was as smooth as cream and the bones of ice and jade really existed. In the modern world, there was serious pollution. In addition, women came into contact with cosmetics too early. The surrounding radiation was also very high. It was no different from a fool's dream to have skin like Gong Coco's. Jiang Shanka directly put the bathrobe on her body. That invasive gaze made Gong Coco tremble. She was even a little afraid that Jiang Shanke would hug her to sleep at night. She felt that something was wrong. When they got on the bed, Gong Coco rejected Jiang Shanke's offer to apply the cream on her body. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows slightly, but in the end, he smiled gently. Okay, I won't move. I'll help you from the side. Gong Coco nodded. However, when she was about to take off the bathrobe and apply the cream on her body, she hesitated. She had never felt that it was inappropriate before, but now she was a little embarrassed, to be honest. Turn around. Gong Coco found the source of her hesitation. It was Jiang Shanke's dangerous gaze that made her feel uneasy. Jiang Shanke looked at her in amusement. Although this little girl was slow to understand, she was still pure and beautiful. Moreover, he really couldn't look anymore. Just now, when he saw her apply the cream on her legs, he felt that he couldn't control himself. If he continued to look, he would inevitably lose his composure. However, Jiang Shanke thought about it again. He wanted this girl in the first place, so why should he avoid her? At this moment, he heard Gong Coco ask in a low voice. Oh right. Jiang Shanke, I accidentally came here. Do you think I can still go back? Jiang Shanke was stunned. Soon, a strange and urgent anger engulfed him. He turned around abruptly and stared at Gong Coco. You want to go back? Gong Coco was shocked. She quickly gathered her clothes with both hands and stared at him with her round eyes. My brother is still in Dayu state. He's my only family member. I can't not go back. Her voice became softer and softer because Jiang Shanke's gaze was getting more and more frightening. I don't treat you well. Gong Coco was stunned by the question. How should she put it? Jiang Shanke was still very good to her, so she shook her head. Then why do you want to leave? Jiang Shanke suddenly walked to the bedside and grabbed Gong Coco's hand tightly. The anger in his eyes was almost tangible. Isn't it good to stay? Gong Coco looked at him in surprise. You treat me well, but I can't abandon my brother. You still have a family, but my brother only has me. Jiang Shanke looked at her nonchalant expression and was almost angered to death. However, he suddenly remembered that Gong Coco's time travel was irreversible. He didn't believe that she could go back. Give up. You can't go back. Why? Gong Coco frowned. What makes you say that? Jiang Shanke let go of her hand and looked at her condescendingly. Time travel is a space-time accident. It's already a miracle that such an accident happened to you once. Do you want it to happen a second time? His eyes were dark, and his voice gradually lowered. So since you're here, don't even think about leaving in this lifetime. Don't even think about leaving him. Gong Coco looked at him without blinking. Suddenly, she was angry. No way. I came from the water. Maybe I can go back as long as I jump down again. Chapter 893. Jiang Shanke sneered and said, that lake is only so big, but I searched the entire lake and couldn't find the original Gong Coco's body. It's obvious that the space-time exchange has been completed, and this process is irreversible. Give up. Give up. Gong Coco was stunned. She really couldn't go back. She originally wanted to try her best to understand this world, and then find a way to go back, but the truth was, there was no way to go back. Her eyes were sore, and she suddenly felt like crying. If she had been obedient, none of this would have happened. If she didn't appear for a long time, or even forever, how lonely would her brother be? Jiang Shanke was originally still angry, but he saw Gong Coco's tears suddenly fall from her eyes. When she cried, she didn't make a sound, but the big drops of tears that fell inexplicably made one's heart ache. She clenched the bottle in her hand tightly, as if she was trying her best to suppress herself, but her tears fell even more fiercely. The room quietened down. Jiang Shanke saw that she was so sad, and his anger had long disappeared, leaving behind only helplessness. He sat by the bed, and Gong Coco looked away. Jiang Shanke had no choice but to hug her in his arms. Being hugged, it was as if she had found an outlet to vent her grievances. Gong Coco lay on Jiang Shanke's lap and cried loudly. She cried very sadly, as if she wanted to cry out the hesitation and uneasiness that she had been suppressing for the past 2 days. If only I hadn't gone out to sea. I wouldn't have fallen into the water, I wouldn't have come here, and my brother wouldn't have been able to find me. He must be very sad. Although her words made Jiang Shanke very sad, seeing her cry so sadly, Jiang Shanke's heart only ached for her. Boo-hoo. It's all my fault, I shouldn't have disobeyed my brother, I shouldn't have looked for a shortcut, it's all my fault, it's not your fault. Jiang Shanke's hand gently patted Gong Coco's back, comforting her somewhat uneasily. If you didn't do that, I wouldn't have met you. I really wanted to meet you, and I'm very happy to have met you, Kiki. When Gong Coco heard this, she looked at him with tears in her eyes. Then, she burst into tears again. Although you are very good, I still want my brother. Jiang Shanke's face instantly darkened. Later, Jiang Shanke coaxed her for a long time and even used his killer move, bedtime stories. Only then did Gong Coco slowly calm down. Gently patting Gong Coco's back, Jiang Shanke suddenly felt a sense of conscience. Why don't he eat her later and give her time to adapt? Who asked her to be a princess? Thinking of this, Jiang Shanke kissed Gong Coco's forehead. Looking at her quiet and beautiful sleeping face, he thought helplessly, maybe some people are born to be spoiled. Just like her. Before she came, she was a princess. After she came, she moved his heart and he was willing to be her knight. The next morning, when Gong Coco woke up, her mood was much better. If she couldn't go back, there was a second way. That was to reach the 9th level as soon as possible. Gong Coco secretly clenched her claws in her heart. She would definitely work hard. No matter how difficult the 9th level was, she could definitely do it. Morning, a lazy male voice suddenly pulled Gong Coco back to reality. Only then did Gong Coco realize that she had woken up in Jiang Shanke's arms. No wonder she felt hot the whole night. Morning. Gong Coco didn't dare to look at him. She hurriedly got up. She hadn't washed up yet, how could she meet people like this? But the strange thing was, she didn't mind before. Why did she suddenly mind now? It could only be said that she was enlightened. Jiang Shanke sat on the bed and looked at Gong Coco's nervous expression. He thought proudly. She didn't have any scenes today. Jiang Shanke, who already knew Gong Coco's schedule, decided to give himself a day off. He would take Gong Coco out to play and buy some things that she liked. When Gong Coco heard that Jiang Shanke was going to take her out, her eyes sparkled. She quickly put on her clothes. Her clothes were made of the best silk that Jiang Shanke had bought. Today, she wore a pure white silk dress and a pure cotton coat. As there was still some time before summer, the weather was still a little cold. After she was ready, Jiang Shanke brought Gong Coco to Haidian City's largest international trade center. Along the way, he pointed out the surrounding buildings and culture to her. Gong Kiki was an obedient child the entire time and memorized every single word he said. When they arrived at the clothing store, Gong Coco liked long dresses. She wasn't interested in clothes that exposed her arms and legs. Jiang Shanke let her be. As long as she liked it, he would buy it. Suddenly, Jiang Shanke's phone rang. He glanced at Gong Coco and asked his assistant to continue following her. He went outside to pick it up. At this moment, a girl walked out of the fitting room. She had a pretty face, but there was a long scar on the left side of her face. After she came out, she looked in the mirror and saw Gong Coco in the mirror. At that moment, her expression changed immediately. Gong Coco. When Gong Coco heard someone calling her, she turned around in surprise. At this moment, Gong Coco's hand was raised high and almost hit Gong Coco's face. Fortunately, the assistant stopped her in time. Miss Gong, she is the young madam of the Jiang family. Please show some respect. The assistant said coldly and forcefully flung her hand away. Young madam. Gong Wanwan sneered. Who doesn't know that young Master Jiang doesn't like her? After being married for so long, she is still a virgin, right? She still dares to say that she is the young madam of the Jiang family. When Gong Coco heard how the assistant addressed her, she guessed that she was the younger sister who often bullied the original owner. For this kind of concubine's daughter, in her era, she didn't even have the right to look at her. Therefore, Gong Coco naturally wouldn't lower herself to talk to her. Her attitude made Gong Wanwan even angrier. In the past, Gong Coco was bullied by her. Ever since she knew that Gong Coco was going to marry an old man, she went to mock her. In the end, she escaped and even scratched her face. After that, Gong Coco changed. She couldn't control other things anymore. In the end, she even married young Master Jiang. That was young Master Jiang. She dreamed of marrying young Master Jiang. She didn't expect that in the end. It was this slut who took advantage of her. Gong Coco, are you mute? I am your younger sister. You don't even recognize your family after climbing up the tree. I've never seen someone as heartless as you. Her voice was very loud, and the surrounding people looked over. The people who came here weren't ordinary people. Some people recognized Gong Coco's identity and were curious about who Gong Coco was. Gong Coco frowned. She felt that this person was very uneducated to make a fuss outside. She didn't want to cause trouble and turned to leave. However, how could the other party let her go? Stop! Gong Wanwan arrogantly shouted to stop her. Is this your attitude as an illegitimate daughter? Father provides you with food and clothes, but you're turning your back on him now that your wings have hardened. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.